and the Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Nurrumbidgee ancestral lands on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you. I have one apology for today's meeting, being Councillor Bland. I have no acknowledgements. Item 3, declaration of conflict of interests. To declare, any councillors wish to declare anything at this point in time? Being none, I just note, councillors, that there's been an amended annual business plan circulated just in the last hour or so, and we've just been alerted again. There may be one page that's not entirely as we would wish. Checking that now, but when we get to that item, we'll pick that up then. I move to item 4, confirmation of minutes. 3 separate motions, Ash. So I want to first motion be amend the minutes of the ordinary meeting, including the confidentials on the 21st of March, and we would note that included an agenda that there's some minor alterations in that. Can I move that way, please? Councillor Arthur and Rountree. You're seconding, Councillor Rountree?
Yep.
Is there any debate? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Move to the minutes of the ordinary meeting, including the confidentials held on the 18th of April. Councillor O'Hara. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cormann. Thank you. Any discussion? There being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. And the minutes of the special meeting, including the confidential, held on the 5th of May. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Qualman. Seconder will be Councillor Rountree. Any discussion? There being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Gets carried unanimously. Adjourn business. Peach. Council delegations. That's been adjourned till this meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move the recommendation, given that there is a review currently underway with the report backdated the 15th of August. It has addressed some of the concerns raised, or some of the issues raised in that motion, so I'm happy to move the recommendation at this stage.
So you're moving that in line with motion of 06823, a review of council's delegations register to be provided.
Is that enough of a, do I need to deal with the substantive motion there, or is that enough of a?
Yeah, sorry, Council, we're just, going to push the date, and I think that suffices the way it is.
Happy to move.
The recommendation is as it reads in the agenda. The motion is. Yes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rountree. Councillor Pearce, you want to speak to it further?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just the progress we've had so far, and look forward to finalising it.
Thank you, Councillor Rountree.
Nothing further to add.
No, anyone else? You'll close.
Closed.
Councillors, I put the motion. It is the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Report by members, councillors. My report 6.1 is in the agenda. Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Right down the bottom, April the 27th, discussion with Australian Rail Track Corporation representatives via Zoom.
Yeah, so I had a Zoom meeting which is arranged courtesy of Councillor Peach with a senior board member, I suppose, of ARTC online for half an hour, and I would trust that out of that we'll get some progress back at officer level around several projects. The lead one I wish to discuss was two parts. One, whether it was the pedestrian crossing at Tintinara, whether we could have that moved, improved, and the second one was the speed of trains in general, particularly through Tail and Bend here at high speed. I feel it was very productive, and I thank councillor for the introduction. But yeah, I think we're going to, I'm looking at the officers, whether we can get a relationship working to our favour. I understand that our council has the most railway crossings of any council in Australia in ARTC's control. Second part is.
Yeah, just an additional, did you speak to our concerns or how seems to be some positive progress made regarding cleaning maintenance of the corridor? Did you mention?
Yeah, that was mentioned briefly, and
Yeah.
and I followed up with a resident around that area. But yeah, and she took that forward. I'd say it'd be fair to say, you know, we'll see soon how that works out.
Sounds like we kicked a few goals. Thank you.
Well, it was very good. Councillor Roundtree.
5th of April, general discussion with Nick McBride MP and the CEO.
It's a general discussion, councillor. I don't think there was anything particular. You know,
Well,
we would have
maybe I
talked
thought you might
about.
have talked about something like, you know, school buses or something. No?
We would constantly talk about that, and that's a subject for further discussion, actually.
Well,
But
that
I
was
probably
what I
talked
was
about.
hoping.
Yeah. No, talked about probably as usual roads and probably how we'd handled the flood. I think was probably and things like that at that point in time. You see, we were at we met with the minister just previous to that. I think from memory, where are we? In that day, and the Menangle area school students come before that. Unfortunately, we couldn't stay with them long. Into this chamber. Yeah. So Nick does make himself available regularly for me to discuss things. And I just talk about one little one. After the LGA ordinary general meeting on the 14th, I was invited, so I went across the river to the Sandford Government and Industry Stakeholder Forum. Festival of Facilities, they described it as, which was pretty interesting. It was talked about the amount of funding that may be available in the future to improve facilities in this state. This comes out of the AFL's pot of money from the new television deal, I think, from memory. And I think it'll be worthwhile us getting our mind around that and how we may in the future help our sporting grounds improve our facilities in conjunction with this. That was well worth me sneaking across there for a couple hours just across from the convention centre. Just on the LGA conference, a motion around, I suppose, progressing into some people might call it more progressive, but a bit of a different space around climate change got up this time. So the LGA's policy will be amended a bit to follow that as processes.
It also keeps you open for grants.
Keeps us open for grants, that's right. So anyone else? I was very fortunate, you might have noticed, to cut the ribbon, Coorong Cats opening. We're even more fortunate that one of our recipients today of a long-time volunteer award had his trainer's scissors handy, because just before the ribbon cutting, we worked out that I didn't have a pair of scissors, I wasn't that hungry or didn't carry a pocket knife that day. All so far so good with the Football League. Things are happening. Okay, anything else? Move on. There's no councillor members' reports this meeting. Council. There is no petitions. There's no deputations. At this stage, unless Sharon, you're asking a question, there's no questions. So I can see, and we're aware of, Ashley, at all, are we? No, so we move to item 10, bylaw review. Item 1, are we bringing some on the screen, councillors, to answer your questions? Yes, councillor Roundtree, just.
Can I propose that these are all moved separately and not as a group, please?
To a degree, perhaps your questions around any one of them. be
Well, I
best-
think they're both.
Perhaps
important.
we'd have to move, Ash, just to release meeting procedure while you discuss these. Suspend, can someone move that we suspend meeting procedure? Councillor Peach. Any discussions to, well, I'll give it up to 20 minutes, councillors. As long as we get someone up. Oh, 23. Hello, she's on that one. Welcome. So for everyone's benefit, one of council's advisors, a lawyer, is online to answer some questions around the bylaw review. I haven't put that motion for 20 minutes to suspend meeting procedure. All those in favour? He's gone, doesn't matter. The motion, I think was, I'm going to put it down as carried unanimously, councillors. Where did she go?
Down here. You've still got 2 Zooms open down the bottom according to this.
So is there not an opportunity to move them separately?
I'm not saying there isn't, councillor, I just wanted you to ask the questions first of our advisor. If we can get her online.
Thank you.
Close them on.
Good evening. Apologies about that. I'm not sure what happened. My computer just dropped out.
It's all right. So welcome. So we've got 20 minutes of suspended procedure. So I'm
Thank
gonna- councillors, can you speak to your speaker so someone can hear us? Your questions around issues with any of these bylaws, please. You want to start, councillor Roundtree, or?
Oh, I only have one issue with one. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you. And apologies if you see my eyes divert. It's just because I've got your bylaws on my other computer screen.
Yes, so I only had one query or concern with the local government land bylaw 10.1.5.3. I don't agree with that particular section. And I thought I had read recently in the papers that it was a state government request that bylaws were updated to perhaps include this bylaw, I guess, or this change to the bylaws, but I've also read that it's not compulsory that this go into the bylaws and there is some discretion available. I don't think it's sensible or safe.
So what can you tell us about that one? What's it
Thank
about?
you. Through you, the Mayor, can I just clarify in terms of your concern, did you say it's about the wording around that we've proposed about reference to intersex, transgender or gender diverse? Is that the particular issue of concern?
Yes, so the change is that intersex, transgender or gender diverse people can choose which toilet or their ablutionary facility they would like to use. And I think it's not a safe space for women in that regard, and would like to see perhaps something written in that sort of compels councils to have unisex or a different facility available that is more private and secure than an open, the open toilet, female toilet system.
Through the Mayor, I'm happy to respond to that. So thank you for your feedback. And look, me putting all my personal views aside, I can tell you that the legal position is ultimately the Legislative Review Committee of Parliament conducted a thorough inquiry into these provisions in council bylaws, which is what led to the concerns being raised by the committee over the last 12 months, which have actually only recently hit the media. And I can tell you that ultimately it's the Legislative Review Committee that has the overall power of veto, if you like, in respect of council bylaws. Whilst the legal position is all bylaws have to be construed subject to equal opportunity legislation, anti-discrimination legislation, the outcome of the Legislative Review Committee's inquiry into this particular matter was that they had the head of the Equal Opportunity Commission making comments before Parliament that the drafting of the provisions in similar terms to what your prior provisions were are discriminatory and of concern. And they also raised concerns about the age of children being specified and requiring it to be vulnerable persons. So as a result of the evidence that was for the committee, and again, I make no comment in regards to my personal views, but the Legislative Review Committee made a very clear position in terms of its expectations from councils regarding bylaws. You're absolutely right that at the end of the day, you can pass, the council can pass whatever it wants. What I can tell you, the legitimate risk arising from what we know about the Legislative Review Committee's response and conduct to date is that if you do not have a bylaw, if you choose to have a bylaw that includes an ablutionary facilities clause, then it will, in terms like your previous bylaw or existing bylaw, it is likely to be disallowed by Parliament. And we've got one council that's currently subject of a motion to disallow before Parliament on the basis that it has wording, that excludes that gender diverse, gender neutral terminology. So we're in the council's hands. The council could resolve tonight, for example, to proceed with, like, an option would be to proceed with the local government land bylaw, but removing that ablutionary facilities clause. But my strong recommendation to you would be, if you wish to have an ablutionary facilities clause, it should be in terms of the model clause provided by the Legislative Review Committee.
So through you, Mayor, if we were to remove the clause altogether, where does that leave us? What does that then say? That it's just open, toilets are open for anyone and everyone sort of thing?
Through the Mayor, it just means that you have no ability to enforce somebody doing the wrong thing. And ultimately, though, if there were unlawful acts committed, then that is a matter for SAPOL.
So you froze up there for a minute. Could you just repeat that?
Sure.
Sorry.
So if you don't have this provision in the bylaw, you still have the ability to put signs, whatever you like, on your own public facilities. It just means that without this provision, there would be no offence that the council is capable of enforcing. But of course, if there was any unlawful conduct occurring in any public facility, then that would be a matter for SAPOL.
So through you again, sorry, hogging the floor here. Is there any way to amend the wording to suggest that in support of the intersex, transgender and gender diverse peoples, that we allocate either the disabled or unisex toilets for that particular purpose? That's not discriminatory to them. They have a space, but it also leaves the female and male toilets as a safe place for females and males as well. So is that not something that would be fair to just sort of say that that's how we operate?
To be fair, I cannot tell you what the Legislative Review Committee's position would be about it. I'd be happy to consider drafting around those terms, but what I would say is then it's going to put the council in a very difficult cost predicament whereby there would be an expectation that all your public facilities have a gender diverse facility attached to them. So if you don't currently already have that, my view is it's not a place for your bylaws for that to be set up. That's a matter you can resolve. You could pursue that at any time within your council area. And if you did, then this bylaw provision isn't really going to, offend you or prevent you from doing that. I suppose the best legal advice I can give you tonight, based on my extensive experience working with council and with bylaw reviews and the Legislative Review Committee, is that if we move away from the model wording, the risk to council is a motion of disallowance, which would disallow not just that provision, but the whole bylaw. So if,
In that regard,
sorry,
what happens if that happened?
you
So
will
if
be without a local government land bylaw in your council area. So then you would have to restart the process again from scratch. And basically it would mean all the costs committed for the purposes of the motion being disallowed.
So just can I confirm that? So we would have to not pursue in this scenario 10 at all, prohibit activities. The person must not do any of the following on local government land. We would not be able to push. If the councillors were of that mind, we would eliminate 10(1).
Thank you, Mayor. So what I see the councillors as doing is that if you have a strong preference or you object to the current drafting, it would be open to you not to include clause 10.1.1 in your bylaw, so we can move forward without that clause. But if you want to include an ablutionary facilities clause, then my strong recommendation is it be as per this clause, which is in line with the model clause provided by the Legislative Review Committee. But you don't actually have to make that decision tonight, Council. You can send this out to consultation. You can await community feedback, and we'll just need the instructions coming up to certifying final versions.
So my last question then will be, with the bylaws that are currently in front of us, can we move them at this meeting individually to set forward the ones that we all agree with, and then maybe just consider the one we don't agree with?
Through the Mayor, you can do that. The difficulty you'll find yourself in is that then you will still need to endorse a position for the one that you have difficulty with, and ultimately, unless you want to have differing consultation timeframes, then it will delay potentially the process, and we are working to a timeline to ensure that you have new bylaws before your existing bylaws transpire, which is 1 January next year. So we are working towards gazettal of 31st of August. So if you go down the path you've just suggested, there is a good chance the process will be delayed, and you'll get to a point where you won't have bylaws gazetted by the 31st of August this year.
So me personally, I don't know about my fellow councillors, all 5 of the bylaws I'm fine with the changes. It's just that one clause I think is problematic, and I can't see it being something that's helpful or useful for anyone really. So yeah, I don't know what the others think, but that's my position.
So we'll go around with questions. We're not in debate. So Councillor Peach has indicated to me. Yep.
Thank you. I'll come to that last question that Councillor Roundtree asked in a bit, but I do have a few other questions if I may first. Now I'm being pedantic with 6.2. The wording there, birds, poultry are birds. I do disagree. The new wording, the old wording was a lot clearer as to what it was referring to.
6.2, Councillor.
6.2, sorry, this is the roads bylaw. I should start with the bylaw. Yep. The original wording in the old bylaw was animal refers to all animals, including birds and insects, except dogs. And the new one is animals include birds, insects, and poultry, but does not include a dog. I'm keen to see the original wording retained.
So is there a reason why the dog's excluded?
Because they have their own bylaw.
They have their own bylaw.
And also to avoid inconsistency with state legislation. So we have to exclude dog, but I think I understand the concern is the inclusion of the word poultry. Is that correct?
The previous wording was very clear. It refers to all animals except dogs, with a couple, and specifying that it also included birds and insects in that. Was the new wording just says animals including. It takes out the all animal part of it. And I just find the inclusion of the word poultry after we've already said birds a bit bizarre. As I said, that's being pedantic though.
Yeah, I think we're getting into a matter of semantics, and I'm in the council's hand. If that's what the council wants to do, we can change it. That is something that it would be a minor change. It could happen during the consultation phase.
If I could move on in the roads bylaw to 6.1, definition of a road, and I appreciate back that you responded to my original question around that. I've raised this with, I had a discussion around this and the effect of the dog business with Miles earlier. But what I'm curious to understand here is where we have a road reserve that runs through the middle of a private property where there is no evidence of a road, which is quite frequent across our council area. Is that captured under this definition or not? Because it's a gazetted road. It is a road, but in some cases it's in the middle of a cropping paddock with no evidence to suggest it's a road.
If it
And-
has public status as a road, like under the Local Government Act, and you're telling me it's a gazetted road, so it would appear on Lands Titles Office, like on searches, then yes, it has status as a road and it's not local government land.
Yep. So therefore, the prohibition of doing certain things without permission from council on that space when it's in the middle of somebody's paddock concerns me. That is there a way of differentiating that space out? Because in particular, I know in the lower part of the council area, those instances occur on almost every property in some areas.
There's not a way to change the definition of road in terms of how this bylaw applies, because legally we are bound by the Local Government Act. But what we can do, I've included an exemption in the Local Government Lands bylaw, and a general exemption power, and we can include that in the roads bylaw. So you would be open to the council if there was a particular road or roads that you were concerned about, you could have a policy position saying that those roads are exempt from the application of the bylaw. So that would be the way to achieve the objective you want to achieve.
Thank you. I think that would be, in my view, preferential, just so that we're clear.
Simone, where is that in the agenda? Sorry, in the bylaws?
Oh, no, I'm just offering an option in terms of how we can achieve the objective. So ultimately, if that's what the council wants to do, perhaps the resolution tonight would be to resolve to endorse these bylaws, but subject to the points that are agreed. But I can absolutely, in council's hands, happy to add a general exemption clause in the roads bylaw, which would give you flexibility in terms of how you apply that how you apply that bylaw in your council's area, and it would enable you to deal with the concerns raised by the member just now.
Yeah. Councillor, that
Certainly
reasonable
clarifies the
outcome.
position, I think. Yep, no, that's fantastic if that's possible.
Any further concerns?
I have a few, but I'm happy to yield if,
No, don't yield yet.
okay.
Run out of time.
The use of the word exercise under, so I appreciate clarification of 7.3. This is still under the roads bylaw as it relates. So the use of the word exercise, I still have an issue with being in there, just as it relates to horses, because it is quite common parlance to exercise a horse by riding it. And just for the sake of clarity, I don't know if that needs to be in there, given that there's an exemption, as you've noted, for a horse being ridden as it's a vehicle. I think the use of the word exercise, just because of what that can mean in relation to horses, is probably a little murky.
Another word you'd like?
No, I think that being led or driven probably covers it.
I take your point. Through the mayor, the only comment I would make about that is removing the word exercise in those circumstances is going to limit the application of the provision. So if that's what the council's will is, we can do that. But for legally, I take the point, but legally I'm not concerned about the issue because the bylaw is construed subject to the Road Traffic Act, so it cannot apply to a horse when it is being ridden. So my view is there's not a legal need to get rid of it, but if you want to get rid of it, you can, and I'll be in your hands.
Is
You want to add words there or remove?
Well,
words?
is there a way just to give to the casual reader the understanding that if a horse is can we acknowledge the rules around horses within the bylaw?
Happy to do that, and a way we could do that is by including a note.
Yep.
So we could make a note. You've probably seen a few notes throughout the bylaws to assist the reader in applying them correctly. So we could do that under that clause, just to say, to clarify, when a horse is being ridden, the bylaw doesn't apply to it.
Next point, councillor.
Okay, so moving on to the dogs bylaw, if I may,
Dogs.
bylaw.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, can I move that we, a further
Can't
10
move
minutes?
yet, you can
No?
ask a question.
A further 10 minutes. We're about to run out of time.
You're very close. You've got 2 minutes left.
Number of dogs, as I mentioned in my response, I'd be keen to see that increase by one, except for small dwellings. But I think Miles has been able to clarify some of this for me, but I'm just keen to explore it a little bit. The breeder registration under the Dogs and Cat Management Act, what limitations are there to prevent somebody establishing a breeding establishment that causes an issue with an increased number of dogs and them saying that they have an exemption because they're an operational business under the Dogs and Cats Management Act?
Through the Mayor, if somebody wishes to establish a breeding business, then under the Act, they're required to be registered. And there may also be planning implications, so they'd be required to meet those requirements. If they are registered under the Act and they meet planning requirements, there is an exemption under the bylaw that applies such that the limits do not apply to that business. You also have
The planning requirements in the bylaw?
it requires all compliance with all required approvals. So there's an approved kennel establishment, which might be construed as being different to a breeding facility.
Correct. That's where my concern was.
Yes. So, and again, but it's the same requirement, the way the bylaw operates in respect of kennel establishments and breeding facilities. The starting point is they will only be exempt if they meet all the proper approvals. And you also have in this bylaw the general exemption provision at the end that has now been included. So if there was ever a business that for whatever reason didn't meet that threshold, you would have the ability to give them an exemption if you needed to facilitate that for economic development or whatever other reasons.
Take the meeting's resolution or agreement to another 10 minutes. Yes. Okay, we go on a bit longer. Councillor, you're still going.
And I think the only further point I had was to concur with Councillor Roundtree. I'm incredibly uncomfortable around ablution blocks as it relates to having spaces that are designated, and I won't be supporting it going forward in that capacity. I am of two minds personally whether to remove it or send it in. That's my comment on it.
What was your second comment? Sorry.
I'm in two minds as to whether we just remove the clause in general or whether we, at a personal level, whether I seek to revert it to the existing going forward. So that's the end of my questions.
This is for going for consultation. So
Yep.
Thank you. Just, can the council put a note on any one of these in this grouping, Simon, that we're seeking further advice, because we are going to public consultation around this, but we are seeking further advice around this one and what I suppose maybe expressing our displeasure at it.
Through the Mayor, thank you. You can resolve to, all you're doing tonight is endorsing these for public consultation and referral purposes. So we're not making them tonight. So if my advice would be that if we wanted to remove that provision, then we could do that without the need for further consultation. But if we were going to refine it so that it would be per your existing bylaw terms, my advice is you then couldn't proceed without going to further consultation on that revised version. So I think that there is probably a need, even though you're just endorsing them tonight, there is a need for the council to work out its position as to whether or not you want to include an ablutionary facilities clause, and if you do, the terms of that clause. You can still down track, probably remove it without any, without any implications on the process and the timing, but to further refine it and take away the rights that it confers as in its present form, we would have to go out to consultation again. But you could resolve to, for example, leave it, delegate for the CEO to determine following consultation, further consultation, or you have flexibility about what you do.
want to get this clear. So council could resolve for the purpose of 10.1.5.3 to not accept that.
Mr Mayor, if I may, my issue goes beyond the point 3. I think some of the language around children, which has obviously been identified by the Commissioner, is problematic as well. So I have some structural issues with that entire paragraph.
Through the mayor, if it might assist, I can
Yeah.
possibly provide through Miles the actual comprehensive report from the Legislative Review Committee inquiry, because probably in the interest of ensuring informed decision making, it might be that if members are taking the issue they're taking with that clause, that you have regard to that report. That is what the committee, the current Legislative Review Committee, keeps referring back to. So that's why I'm saying that if you want to have an evolutionary facilities clause, if we move away from the current drafting, then you're putting yourself at risk. So I couldn't recommend that to you.
So through you, Matt, I find it extraordinary that we have to do away with the whole of 10.1 because we object to one line in that whole block. And that there seems to be no ability to reword or do anything except you will accept it or you will accept it or you'll have nothing. And I find that really, really disturbing, because I think the rest of what 10.1 talks about is perfectly fine. It's in my case, it's the issue of 10.1.5.3. And I see where the issue lies. And probably a question for the CEO is, do we have many toilets that don't have a unisex or disabled ability left in our district?
I think we've still got some for you, Mayor. And I suppose if you're following the same logic, Councillor Roundtree, about exposing vulnerable people, you would have the same issue
Yes.
with your concerns in any toilet. So I'm not sure that resolves your issue.
It's hard to discuss. I think there's a better way to manage this that conveys safety for everybody. And I don't think we've done that in this wording. I think there's a better way to do it. Now, we could say that where we do have a disabled toilet or a unisex toilet, that's very clear, like that's available. And where we don't, perhaps we make allowances there. But for the rest of the time, I think those other options are safer for all concerned, for everybody.
Simon, I'm probably asking your opinion. Have you seen this sort of difficulty before? What would be your way of dealing with this as a bylaw?
It is very difficult, Mayor. I think my clear advice, like I can't depart from my clear advice. I do understand the concerns raised, but I can't depart from my advice that if you're going to have a evolutionary facilities clause, then my recommendation is it's as per the model clause that the Legislative Review Committee has sent through the LGA to all councils in South Australia, making very clear that's what its expectation is based on the evidence before the committee, including from not just the Equal Opportunities Commissioner, but also SAPOL, the SAPOL Commissioner, in terms of what's safe and what's not safe. The committee accepts that they are the experts over elected members. That's the committee's view. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's why they take that view. And we did have one, I can explain to you, I've got one council that's pushed back, that went through with the bylaw, that didn't change it. And right now that bylaw there's a motion of disallowance on the agenda before Parliament. It hasn't been dealt with yet. We don't know what the outcome's going to be. There's two different sides in Parliament, like the Liberals are supporting councils having autonomy and doing, what you see fit. Labor position in the past has been the view of the Legislative Review Committee. So, it really comes down to who's on the Legislative Review Committee at any time. So I can't predict the future, but I'm coming from my risk-averse advice is if you want the clause, you have it as they've told you that it needs to be.
Any other council got any other questions? We nearly had a second time. So far, so good. My last call for questions before we might revert back to, well, I hope you can just stay on just in case we need some more advice. Around a debate, there's nothing else? There is none. We will revert back to standard meeting procedure at 5:42. So, councillors, there is a recommendation in the agenda. I'm aware that might be the direction of the floor. So can someone move something, please?
Mr Mayor, if I may, through you, Simone, in terms of some of those other issues we talked about, the addition of that clause, etc., how do we best deal with that in this at the moment?
One, just as words that may be added to a recommendation here. What would you I think we're particularly talking about road reserves, councillor.
The road reserves, from my point of view, that over the word poultry, and the note around
Exercise of horses is,
adding the note that about the general exemption on the road act. Yep.
so can those three be captured somehow right now?
Through the mayor, yes, so your resolution could reflect that you endorse whatever the wording is, following bylaws, but subject to the following amendments or any other, and I'd probably give the CEO some flexibility and say any other amendments that the CEO sees fit, and then you could put your dot point. So I'd say I'd keep it narrow. So I'd say in the inclusion of a general exemption in the roads bylaw, I'd say the inclusion of a note to clarify the interaction of clause, what is it, 7.3 of the roads bylaw to horses when being ridden. And I'm sorry because the audio dropped off a second.
Sorry, the reverting of 6.2 to the animal definition.
Oh, yes. Yes. And I'd probably say, and refining the definition of animal at 6.2. Of the roads bylaw.
Councillor Rountree, are you going to?
With the recommendation, can we change the word endorses to notes? Because I think they're two different processes. If this is going out for community consultation, then we could note it rather than endorse it, because I am going to struggle to endorse.
Looking
I
at
agree
the
with that.
governance officers around
No.
process of making sure we go to public consultation with endorse rather than note
Notes.
rather than endorse. Mon?
Through the mayor, I have no legal issue with that. You can, all we need to know is that the council's seen them before they go out to consultation. This whole process is about empowering you to have some input into the actual bylaws that you're going to make.
Mr Smith, through you, I'm comfortable going to consultation, not passing, be clear for the record, but going to consultation, noting them. I think councillors have made their thoughts known tonight around that particular issue.
So given the 3 points you raised and the count changed to the word endorse to notes, is someone prepared to move that process? Don't rush me. Simon, just to help the process, if council was to ask the Legislative Review Committee around that particular issue, 10.153, how would that go as a separate motion? Expect council's disappointment or displeasure or whatever.
You could write to the committee, you could write to the presiding member of the committee, and that could be tabled before the committee. So that is an option that you can do. And that would be in advance of the bylaws being referred to the committee. I have sought to work with the committee before about having things, having their feedback in relation to proposed terms, but they're not willing because of their workload. They're not willing to comment on proposed legislation. They'll only comment on legislation that is before them once it's been gazetted. But there's nothing to stop the council expressing your views about the model clause that they have endorsed.
councillors to try and help us move this tonight. Their timeframes are relatively tight. That was the will of the meeting in relation to that particular subject. I would probably accept a second motion after the first. We probably do need to move somewhere with the first. Are we close?
Sorry, not, we're trying to figure out what to do.
At some point, I'll need to move on to the next agenda item.
Can I move a different motion to pick up on your second point? That we table a letter, is it to the Legislative Review Committee? Is that
Uh,
what the
Yeah, to the presiding member of the Legislative Review Committee.
presiding member of the Legislative Review Committee,
We do this first.
expressing our disappointment, model clause 10, model clause around, would we say model clause around the evolutionary facilities?
I'd say public facilities, the model clause
Facilities.
addressing the use of public facilities.
Use of public facilities.
So you're foreshadowing a motion, councillor.
Yes, please.
I think to move the meeting forward, I will accept a motion around those things. So just give us some time, please, to just tidying up the previous changes.
Mr. Mayor, sorry,
Love someone could bring me a jug of water.
if I may too, the other
I'm dry as.
The other point I made, which I'd be keen for other elected members' views on, is the increase of the limit of dogs by 1 in general size properties and rural properties.
So Mike, we just get a bit of confirmation around that. So is that picked up in the Dog and Cat Management Act, or is it that now purview?
That's exactly within your purview. So that's a policy position ultimately for the council. This one in a small dwelling is fairly reflective of what happens across the state, but it's not a matter that there's legislative controls about. So it's in your remit.
So how many dogs?
So my suggestion was leave it at 1 for small dwellings, but acknowledging the regional and rural
Yeah.
nature of increase it by 1 in regular size and rural properties.
That takes it to how many?
So it takes it to 1, 3 and 4. That's just my personal view.
I'd support that.
Yeah, it can come out in consultation, but you can put it there now if you want to, right now, because they're just tidying this up. So sorry to the minute takers, we're going to add the number of dogs of a section, please.
Sorry, the definition of animal was under the roads bylaw 6.2. 6.2. That's correct with relation to that one. Yep. And then the other one I raised was the addition of the clarification around general exemption clause, which you've got in there as well. Yep. And then under the dogs bylaw, increasing the number of dogs to 3 and 4.
By 1? By 1 in each
But
category?
no, so not in a small dwelling, but for the larger sizes by 1. So there's 3 categories, I believe, currently. The current limit is 1, 2 and 3. I'm proposing 1, 3 and 4. I believe that's correct.
Neve, you happy with that?
There is now 4 slight amendments or additions or things there. I'm just trying to work out, councillor Roundtree moved a motion, I think. I'm just trying to get this in my head.
Yes, I did, Mayor. To
So
table-
councillor, look. we do it two ways. We get the recommendation and with the amendments first, or we get your motion first. I think it might be just
Whatever
cleaner if we can
you
just
wanna do.
get something established and then express our whatever, if that's what the meeting's will is. You're all right with that?
Yes.
Right. So I'm on the recommendation with those amendments. Councillor Peach, you prepare to move that way? Getting to.
Very uncomfortably, I'll
No,
move.
no, this is not a comfortable business.
I'm aware.
You'll move. Is there a seconder to the process with those amendments, please? This is for public consultation. Councillor Arthur. Councillor Peach, I'll let you speak to that.
I think enough might have been said, Mr. Mayor.
All right, councillor Arthur.
Enough said.
Any other councillors wish to enter the debate? Everyone clear? There is some, what I would describe as relatively minor adjustments or changes to those bylaws there for the purpose of public consultation. Anyone else? There is none.
Close.
So the motion, councillors, on the screen, as you can see. Ashley, tell if you're happy with what you've got. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously, I'm going to tell you. Councillor Rountree, you're going to have well thought out words around
Oh,
10.1.3.
with Simon's help, I will.
10.1.5.3. Simon and Councillor Rountree would welcome your assistance in writing to the committee.
So it would be moving, and you jump in when the better words are there, to table a letter to the Legislative Review Committee, to the it was the principal.
Chair.
Through the mayor, to table a letter, or I'd say to write to the presiding member of the Legislative Review Committee to express the council's whatever word you want, displeasure, disappointment, objection.
Disappointment, objection.
All
yeah.
three.
Send the message in relation to the model public facilities clause.
Perfect, what she said. I was going to say exactly that, but yeah.
Note the council's objection. What, sorry, Mayor, what word do you want?
What word do you want? Objection,
So it was
disappointment?
objections, disappointment. There was a third one. Oh, we just put objection and disappointment.
What was the word you used?
Displeasure.
Displeasure.
Probably displeasure is better than disappointment.
Okay,
Yep.
displeasure.
I think, councillors? I'm not the lawyer.
No,
If-
Objection.
Objection.
Pleasure.
You're moving that way, councillor Rountree.
I am, Mayor.
I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Maidman, thank you. Councillor Rountree, you want to speak to your motion?
I think I've said enough. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Councillor Maidman, you want to speak to the motion?
No, thank you. I'm quite happy.
Quite happy with
Through
those
you,
words?
yep.
Is there any other councillors wish to enter the debate?
It would, this, Mr. Mayor, would be an interesting one if we had to take this to public consultation, wouldn't it?
We're about to.
This change in legislation, I'm sure. Yeah,
We
I'm
are.
sure.
Well, you are, so, but
Yeah.
council, if this motion gets up, has expressed its position in relation to that particular clause.
Mm.
I would look forward to you explaining that to the public so they could talk to their state parliamentary representatives. That was your issue.
It's around already, sir. It's
I know,
around
I know.
already.
Well, if that's what, if this motion gets up, council's expressed its position. You happy with that, Simone?
I think that is a good compromise. Well done to the members.
Okay, is there any other further debate? Councillor Rountree closes. Put the motion. Motion without notice. All those in favour? As against, that's carried unanimously as well. Does that mean we've completed that bylaw review? Councillors, I thank you for your time. Simone, I thank you very much for sticking around and doing that for us.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Okay,
Goodbye.
thank you. I'll just give Ashley a chance to deal with Let that Simone go. Thank you, councillors. We move on to item 2, Community Grants Program, round 2. Recommendation to resolve a little issue. I'm prepared to move that way, please. Councillor Arthur, you moving that way?
I'm moving that way.
You're a seconder?
Mr Mayor, I'll second and have a question.
Yes, certainly.
Can I seek to understand a couple of things here? From what I've been able to ascertain, the error here is from a reversal of the figures.
Yeah, they've just picked up from the wrong column, that's all.
Yep, so that the request was actually the amount they were contributing and vice versa. That does put this amount outside of the 50% category and will have a bearing on a motion I'm bringing later on in the meeting. So I just would like that noted.
We understand that, yeah. Councillor Arthur, do you want to speak to your motion?
Jones. Well done. That meeting has been a mistake and fixing it very quickly.
Any other councillor wish to enter debate? You're closing, councillor, as well, if that's the case.
Closed.
Okay, put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 3, new regional economic growth prospects.
I'll move that way, Mr.
You're
Mayor.
moving that way. Councillor Arthur's moving. Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualman, you the seconder? Any discussion? Notice that Mr. Peter Nattrass, Manager, Future Industries, Department of Energy and Mining's Growth and Low Carbon Division, invited to present a council members workshop on a statewide projects and directions from a regional growth and carbon economy perspective. Further discussion, councillors, debate?
Just have a question,
Speech,
Mr Mayor.
yes.
Noting that this is a workshop, is this so that there's a formal invitation and as opposed to how those are normally organised?
Through you, Mayor. Generally not, but because this is really just expressing council's public view about this, and I think it's a way of ensuring that, and again, it's back to if there are grants available, we are doing things that need to be done to substantiate future grant opportunities. And this person is very skilled in this particular area and also will open up some opportunities, particularly with city councils where they're looking for opportunities for councils with lots of land to offset their carbon emissions. So it's really just a public statement.
Anyone else? Closing, councillor.
Yes, I just think it's an extension of what LAP's doing to find out how this new system is going to work. With one of the blokes has got the finger on the till. So it gives us a chance to get a vast, because somewhere along the line, it's probably council may have to put something aside to help it out. So at least we know which direction we can go in.
Okay, thank
Closed.
you. You've closed. The motion is as it reads, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 4, draft annual business plan and budget. I will start with questions. If there is any. I'll give that.
Well,
It'll be 15 minutes.
yes,
Councillor Roundtree, are you taking the floor, are you?
well, I'm just going to say thank you for this document that we got today. I'm still,
Public's purpose, where there is a late amended sort of document to tidy up some issues. Councillors and perhaps the public haven't got that in front of them, I would imagine. Not up on the platform yet.
through you, Mayor, on page 36, just it's the last page I've read so far, but more to read. Just that bottomed number on the table where it says 11 million, the expected total rates revenue in blue. My calculations just say that number is slightly out. It's about 85,000 different. I've just put it into a spreadsheet and checked.
Out
and it's
from
not
what,
right.
councillor?
So it should be, I think, 11,086,670.
On a basis of what basis? Yeah.
Sorry?
It's an arithmetic
Just
calculation error.
just from an adding up perspective, that number seems like it's not right. So just from, if someone was to add it up, they would see that the number didn't add up.
We've got the supercomputer running right
Yep,
now.
so just, I mean, I could be wrong. I've done it a few
Mhm.
times now and it just,
Just see how we go.
if it is, it just needs to be, I can see some of the other changes have been, accepted. So my next,
Which,
So we just try us on the number again, please,
which one do you
councillor.
think is wrong, councillor?
oh, okay, page 36,
Yep,
right down the bottom,
the
the
second
$11
table.
million number.
Second table.
Second table, so expected total rates revenue down the very bottom. My calculation says it should be 11,086,672.
Based on the figures that are written.
Base what's written in the project here, in the actual document.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right, councillor, and I think we changed them today, so
Okay.
we'll fix that up.
Right,
We've
thank
changed
you.
this table several times and that's just missed.
Yep, no worries.
There also could be some, no, they're not, I was going to say slight rounding, but they're not rounded.
Rounded.
Your next one?
So I have had an explanation. So looking at page 21 under economy, other initiatives, case management, one-stop shop service for major developments. I did get a response from the CEO to my question about what that was. I'm just wondering if it could be just like, I just think, could it be written in a slight different way that makes that understandable? Like I think you wrote it was to do with developments and the region.
Sorry, councillor, so through you, Mayor. Which words, councillor?
The underneath,
Yeah,
under,
page 21.
yeah, case management, one-stop shop service for major developments is confusing and it's another initiative. Just explain what that is.
So through you, Mayor, that's really in preparation for the extension of the growth strategy, that when developers similar to the one we heard about earlier today want to come to council, rather than them having to go to one or two places, we will have Miles or Ken as the primary point of contact. So it's like a one-stop shop. It's not going to cost any money. It's really just flagging that we're starting to get prepared for that type of activity. That can be done as part of feedback and we can fix that because it's not going to materially affect.
No, it's more the words under what case management. So I was thinking more along the lines of, should it explain what it actually means? Like,
We can have a look at the words that
Yeah,
if they're
just-
more descriptive.
sounds very pedantic. Under community on page 23, and we look at our major projects, I think, and this is what I wrote in my comments, was I feel like there's quite a lot of, if we're looking at community, there's quite a lot, all of the things that are listed here have got a fairly, well, all of them to me are more tourism based. And if we were looking at what council can do to maintain a strong community, I mean, I think we're doing a lot of things around like the Lions Park, jetties, libraries, parks, playgrounds, all those things I feel fit more under the community banner and describe that heading better than, say, tourism stuff.
That's what you meant. We can have a look to see where they fit. This, when under the community banner is more about the resilience and the community itself, not the building and the infrastructure. So we can have a look at where else that might be.
I guess my brain went to what we do for the community, in which case they're the people that live here. What is it that we're doing for them? And in the other initiatives on that same page, where it says in conjunction with regional sport and recreation, increase female participation in sport, rather than increase, I was looking more opportunities to encourage. I'd take on board what your response to me was. I feel that we could, because it makes it look like we're just going to do something we're already doing, and could we just expand on that wording a little bit?
That's what you meant. My response to Councillor Roundtree around this one was that Sandfell, and the Mayor mentioned the possibility of grants through Sandfell. There is a strong focus on female participation, particularly in AFL. And the audit that Sandfell did across most of South Australia found that facilities for females in that particular sport was lacking. Our district is no different from there. We expect that there will be some activity to upgrade toilets to accommodate women in sport, which is why that's there. And we've been working actively with Sandfeld for them to give us their audit results in a more granular fashion so we can understand it. At some point, we can come back and.
Right, and appreciate that answer. You actually just said the word I think I was looking for, replace increase with the word support, because I think that's what we're looking at here. There's actually a really good, I think there's a lot of women already wanting to get into it, but supporting them with facilities is what we really are aiming to do, rather than encouraging them to come do it, because they want to do it, but we need to support them in doing it.
Okay, what else you got? We'll give someone else a go.
Mr. Mayor,
Sorry.
this,
Will councillor Peach a go?
if I can jump back to councillors Roundtree about page 36 and that bottom figure. The figure is also out in the first column on the top table, just on a simple arithmetic matter. And as I've noted, I have some noted privately beforehand, I have some concerns about the overall figures in these tables. But the addition of the rates with the fixed charge doesn't come up to the bottom line figure in the first table either, which will affect the
There's
percentage difference.
considerable discussion around this, councillor. We got to a conclusion with the CEO and you on this prior to the meeting.
So 8,015,898 plus the fixed charge of 676,050 comes to 8.691948 million.
So through you, Mayor, this table has been changed about 15 times today. And so it is now probably the formulas that sit under it are probably bear no resemblance to what they should have been. And that's a result of trying to change something on before a council meeting. We will go back and make sure that the figures are right. The overall arching budget, remembering this is the rating strategy, the actual budget is the one that's in the attachment. This is trying to pull out the salient points, I suppose, for the public. We can make sure that that's right, but the actual budget itself is the one that has the figures in it that are important.
So
Through you, Mayor.
subject to some further work, councillor, we're starting to get to the point where
This
stretching
is
the
the
friendship
public
of the
facing
system.
document though. No one else gets to see the other stuff. So we just need to make sure that anyone bored at home sitting down with a calculator can make that look.
So if you sit down with, yes, and I take your point, and the reason why it has now changed so much in the last probably 24 hours is because people wouldn't have had time to check formulas and things like that. So that is, and that's my fault, I'm sorry. But we will make sure that the numbers add up, but the salient, the main, and you're right, and that will go out to public consultation as amended, but the actual budget, is the one that sits at the back of the document itself.
I think from our perspective, we haven't had a lot of time to read this before tonight's meeting, getting it Friday and me rushing through it Saturday, but that's just how it goes. And that's as far as I only got
Councillor Maidment.
page
Okay.
Just for a
36.
shame.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I just have one little question. Page 22, under major projects, of the construction of the car park at an electrical vehicle charging station at Meningie. I'm concerned that that's in there when we don't have any notification from the RAA yet about their share of the
No.
funding for that.
You want to address that or no?
You may. No, we have got notification that they will contribute to the degree that they said they would. But that's all in order now.
Thank you.
Through you.
Now get councillor Quam.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 27, capital expenditure underwater says stormwater renewal program. I would assume that's Granite Road, is it?
Yes, councillor.
Is there any opportunity that we could have that included so the residents know that's what
With
we're
Granite
looking at?
Road.
Please.
That gonna not change anything, is it?
Through you, Mayor. If we're going to change a couple of those numbers, we can change that as a
The
preliminary.
wording, I think, councillor, you want the wording.
Yes, please.
Councillor, I'm gonna get councillor Arthur. He's his hand up.
I've got a question here. We've got a 10% rate increase and $1 million deficit. Now, some of the figures we've got in your external funding, aren't these doubling up? Aren't they some of these already in?
What page?
For example, page 19 is the BHP Aquatic Reed grant, which we told we got recently, it's 50 grand. The Smart Farm Small Grant, 210,000. Beaten Livestock Australia, which is a progressive 3-year job, which is,
Yeah.
which I thought was in its last legs this year, 373,000. Now, are they grants that are going to be received in 23, 24?
Who you met, this is a snapshot of what work is actually happening. If it's a grant that rolls over to next year, which some of these are, then they will already be in the budget. But this is just a snapshot of what those grants look like for 23, 24.
Okay, the second question is, in the papers we were handed out last week and were taken back, there was $700,000 for plant and equipment. And I see it's jumped up to $900,000 now. Why is the
It
increase?
may have been at 900 last week, councillor, but Matt, do you want to just broad sense?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. There'll be a workshop that details that outline of all of the plant fleet they're in. I don't recall the 700 figure. I may be wrong, but.
May have been your words, councillor.
And
I think you did express a view, but it wasn't necessarily of everyone's.
And the other thing,
900.
with the actual increase, I know it's very hard to work out an increase because of valuations over the board, but we are proposing a 10% increase with a 15% maximum. Now, I believe.
Cap on
Yeah, a cap,
application.
yeah, maximum cap. I believe under the circumstances that 10% should. Because there's going to be some people that are going to get hit very, very hard. Because some people are going to get hit very hard, 10% increase, let alone a 15% increase. And, you know, like, it's all right for council to sit here and say, we'll just keep spending money, we'll keep employing people and all that sort of thing. But it's the person out there that's got to pay for it.
So you're proposing, you would rather cap on application or automatic
10% cap on it. I'd rather
application?
them work it on 10% straight away. They can do that.
What do you mean by 10% straight away?
Well, you've got a bucket of money you want to get, you've got your valuations, you just work it back with the formula.
Sort of lost me, but
So
this is we're talking here about a rate
and the other
allowance of either 10% or 15%.
Yeah, 10% is the maximum.
You want 10%?
And the other thing is, why aren't we presented with the figures? Now, this has been coming up for years and years and years without the rebates in them. Because you know the rebates are compulsory. So why do we still put them in?
So some are compulsory and some are discretionary,
Well,
and they come in on the other side of the budget. No, that is interesting to people, but it'll change a bit when we finally set the rate. That's the harsh reality of it. But I just want to come back to your rate capping.
Yep. You
would rather have a 10% upon application in this document going up a public consultation.
I believe 10% is well above what I would like to accept. I think 6% is what we should be aiming at.
Right, so I'm going to
Not 10%.
put that aside for the moment because we haven't got to a motion yet because I'm still on questions and I'm probably well out of time. I'm just thinking how I'm going. I'm nearly there. Councillor Peach.
Mr Mayor, thank you. I have a further question going to rate revenue. Page 36, as we've discussed, the total amount at the bottom. This was in the original document. Page 36, expected rate revenue total, including all charters, swims, etc., was 12.43 million.
Is the revised or the original? Councillor?
This is in both documents. At page 41, total rate income, 322 million, $108,000 difference between the two figures.
Sorry, which page did you say?
So page 41, statement of comprehensive income. The rate income expressed there is the same as the rate income expressed on 36. However, for this financial year, there is a $108,000 difference between the two figures. And they both purport, as I understand it, to include all charges.
I'm just looking at Sharon. Sorry, Mayor.
So on page 41, the rates income is expressed as 12.322 million. On page 36, it's 12.43 million. It's the same. The figure for this year is a differential $108,000.
Sharon, can you come around to the speaker, please? I'll
Just having
invite
a
you
look,
to
see what was on.
the chamber.
Sorry? Oh,
Getting Sharon to come to a mic.
you look.
That one's a goer.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I'll just grab my paperwork.
So councillor, just hang on to that thought, and I'm going to go to councillor O'Hara.
Mine's just a minor one, I think, which is what councillor Maidment brought up, the car park at Meningie has got in here 116,000, maybe it should just say that RAA funding, sort of half of that.
Who you met?
That's a
We'll-
note.
Yeah, we'll make a note of that in the document. Yeah.
Back to you, councillor Roundtree.
Well, councillor O'Hara just sort of stole my thunder, but that was what I was trying to get to as well, that I think on the capital expenditure page 27, that perhaps an asterisk could be useful to identify the projects that do have external funding so that, you know, we can see that the RAA will be putting some money in to the EV facility. Just takes the sting out of it a bit, I think.
Go back to councillor. I'm just giving Sharon some time to get her mind around this.
Got page 36, you said you had 12, what was the other page you were looking at?
Page 41, top line item.
12,322. Inclusive of fixed and service charges, general rate, concession and rebates. Without looking at it, at the actual spreadsheet, I can't answer that. I'll have to take that on notice.
Mr. Mayor, a further question, if I may. I note in the statement of cash flow that it talks about borrowings of a new loan for this financial year of $750,000. Can I ask what that's for?
What page?
Page 43, sorry.
So that would be a borrowing to cover this operation for you. So it can be named or it just can be a loan. It can be named against a project or it can be just a loan taken out by council to fund the capital works, if you wish.
Through you, Mayor, that's hasn't been activated, but it is a way of saying, and it comes from the discussion in the chamber briefings, that Harcooma Road in particular lends itself to intergenerational responsibility, and so Harcooma Road could be borrowings rather than cash from council, as could the small road in Tailem Bend. So it's about those assets or infrastructure that go across several generations. That loan hasn't been activated, it's sitting there.
Thank you.
Councillor Roundtree.
This is a more of a question to the movers and seconders of that motion.
There is none yet, so you
Isn't
might
it-
be
wasn't it
invited
not-
to it.
Oh, sorry.
I'm getting
Oh,
very
well, then-
close to inviting someone to.
Well, I would once again like to maybe change the word endorse to note.
I think if the council doesn't endorse it for public consultation, I think we should. Councillor,
Adam, get away
I'm not
with
quite sure that to endorse something to go to public consultation at some point.
Well, can't we just note it? Like we did with the bylaws?
Well, you can release it, but I think if you're proposing a budget, which you own, you need to endorse it and put it forward for public consultation. I think noting it sounds like
Well,
you haven't
There's the
really.
budget and then there's this document.
Whole thing. The 23-24 draft annual business plan and budget be endorsed for public consultation timeframes.
That's what you mean. Bearing in mind, this document will change again in the numbers once the final valuations come through. So it's not like the numbers are even set now.
So,
The numbers change, as you remember in previous years.
yeah,
With the final valuation, that's as close to the 27th of June as possible. So there will be a whole change again.
but there should be then through you, Mayor, no difficulty in saying that we release it for public consultation.
Go on.
Revenue though.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it's an increase in valuation. So the only thing that's going to increase is the rates.
Councillor Maidment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just further to what councillor Roundtree's mentioning about the wording. We are going back to this to actually endorse it as a budget later in the year in June. why then can't we just note or release now? Because we'll have to possibly make changes after public consultation anyway. So
Only
to me, you wouldn't
endorsing
be
it for the
endorsing something that you're not happy with until the
I want you to be
public
happy with it.
consultation.
I want you to be happy with
Yeah,
it for
but we-
public consultation, not. I want you to have a level of ownership around this document, councillors, for public
You have
consultation.
to
Mr.
be happy with it to get it to that point, to public consultation.
I'd hope we could endorse it, but I'm looking at councillor Peach now, as I haven't answered you very well.
Mr. Mayor, on the expression of what you just said, I cannot support this document.
Yeah.
It contains too many internal errors for this to go to public consultation.
You would note it.
I'm not going to pass it. I'm going to vote against. I'm foreshadowing that now.
Councillors, you leave me in an awkward position. Councillor Arthur, you're indicating to speak.
Mr Mayor, just a couple of questions.
Mhm.
We were presented the other, not Thursday, Tuesday before. Of the grants that have come through the SLURP funding was 2.1 million, the special roads, where are they in here? Because they're not listed here.
They would be in the capital income. There's a capital income line. I
Well,
believe.
external funding, they're external funding. We've got Carcooma Road, we've got Boltalloc Road in there. But the general funding which we get every year, where's that
We haven't got it
in
yet.
in
We
here?
have, so two points, councillor.
Grant subsidies and
The
contributions.
budget will be formed around a successful application of a SLURP funding, and
Mhm.
certainly we are the lead applicants in the region for both Poltalloc and Carcooma, but say that, there's not a guarantee of that funding.
Mhm.
I think it'll be in the budget if I remember reading it.
It will be.
It will be as a, capital, as a grant income, I would
Yeah.
suggest.
But the normal road funding, which we get at the
Normal
end of
grant
June,
funding, yeah, well,
which we were notified of the other day.
yes.
No, sorry.
So
Through you, Mayor,
we've
the-
not made any allowance for this for next year.
There's no, we have. That's not true, councillor. So there was 400,000 from the
431,
LRCIP. Yep. So that's been included in the budget. The SLURP funding
Where?
hasn't yet. It's just in your, in the general figures. It's not pulled out separately, but we can do that if you want.
Well, you've got external funding and
Yeah.
it doesn't,
And the
Yep.
FAG funding, we haven't received yet, but we would have made some allocations for that on the expectation that we get it. Now, this year, we only got 25%, 75% was paid the year before. But again, that's an allowance that's in the grant funding. And there's a grant funding figure there, councillor.
yeah, but that, they're all offset by when you get paid on the 30th of June for next year, and it's always it's always been a crazy setup.
It's never that neat, yes,
Yeah.
through you, Mayor.
Councillor Maber. Sorry. Forget my voice is slipping.
Thank you, Mayor. Given that there's so much questioning of this document, is it possible to go to a special council meeting about this purely on the budget? I
Yes.
know that you would have to call it, but I just think perhaps that's the next course, because we could be arguing here till midnight about this.
You won't be because we finish at 9:30.
I'm just,
So,
is it a possibility?
bill of the meeting to have further confirmation of the figures and further working of the figures and further explanation, that's in your hands. I would simply point out that
Mayor.
at some point, we've got some dates there around public consultation we really need to keep to if we wish to adopt a budget by the 30th of June.
Then perhaps through your mayor, we need to just stick with the wording that we've noted it and released it, because I think endorsing something that we've had such little time to actually read and get information on is a big ask. And I will note that but in one of the answers that I received back from the CEO saying that we had endorsed the community vision plan, and I went back and had a look at the community vision plan, and yes, we did endorse it. So we own those words, we own that document. So I think to me, that really struck home the absolute ownership we have of things we endorse. And if we're not 100% happy, or we're not feeling comfortable, or we're feeling rushed, then noting it is for us, a safer option than continuing to endorse.
So there's some suggested words here for you, given the tenor of the room. That'd be that the draft annual business plan and budget be released subject to amendments for public consultation between the 18th of May 2023 and the 9th of June. Does that satisfy?
That
some of-
satisfies my
some-
position.
Some
I'm not sure
people's
about the others, but
concerns
that
in
would
this one?
satisfy.
Yeah, someone, is it, someone prepare, I am actually going to move to debate. I'm well out of my time, sorry. Write that down. Is there someone prepared to move those words?
I'll move them.
Move councillor Roundtree. There is seconder. Councillor, I'm going to go with councillor Maidment, sorry, councillor Harry. The dark background of the back of the room against the red arm today. Councillor Roundtree, you want to speak to your motion?
I've said enough, thank you.
Anyone else wishes, councillor Maidment, you want to, is the seconder?
I'm a lot happier I'm not going to endorse this document, but I'm happy to release it for public consultation. Yes, as worded, I'm happy.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to enter debate? Okay, you'll close.
Closed.
Motion is moved councillor Roundtree, seconded councillor Maidment, that the 2023-24 draft annual business plan and budget be released, subject to some amendments, for public consultation between the 18th of May and the 9th of June 2023 inclusive. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? So that is carried with councillor Peach voting against the motion. By councillors Bowman, Roundtree, O'Hara, Maidment and Arthur voting for it. I declare it carried. Thank you, councillors, for that discussion. I move to the next. Number 5, which is the little thing, which is a recommendation attention to grant lease to CCI, Coorong Cottage Industries at Meningie. Someone care to move that? Councillor O'Hara, you will. Very good. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidment. Speak to Councillor O'Hara.
I'll just say, I think it's a move. For a long time, they've been paying a lot of money to rent that when other ones weren't paying a lot. I think it's a good move and I'm sure they thank the council for it.
Be kind. Councillor Maidment, you want to say anything?
I just have one little question in regards to a period of 21 years. Is that common practice with these being new? I'm
Our
not sure.
policy now. 21 years to offer that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
If I can, Mr Mayor, just through you, just on that, there's one I just forgot about actually. That did worry me a little bit with another councillor who's not here today. Sometime talked about that moving to Wadmore House in years to come, of course, but
So they could.
we don't want to prelude that happening.
No, I don't think it would. I
They could
suppose.
relinquish their.
They
lease.
relinquish their lease, councillor. I think you better negotiate such so-called simple things. Anyone else wish to enter debate? I'll take that as a no. Councillor, you'll close. So the motion is, as is the recommendation in the agenda, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Consent of variation of easement for C gas, number 6. Councillor Arthur, you are moving, I presume. The seconder, Councillor Roundtree is the seconder, is that correct? Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Arthur?
Quite straightforward.
Anyone else? Councillor Peach?
Does this need to be co-acted with the neighbouring council?
Yes.
CGAS will approach the neighbouring council should that be necessary.
So where, each reference, where does our responsibility on this map end?
Middle of the river is my understanding, councillor,
Mm.
in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my understanding is despite that, We don't have jurisdiction of the river.
No.
That's what had me a little curious.
Most important. Okay, councillor Maitland.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. Just one quick question. Are there any private landholders affected by this at all? You know, this is for our
Question.
council easement, but are there
Oh,
any
that's-
Through
near
the
it?
chair, we wouldn't actually know that. So if there are any, CGAS would have communicated with them directly and we have no involvement.
Okay, everyone happy? Who's closing? Councillor Arthur, you are.
Close.
With the motion, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 7, employee behavioural standards is a recommendation to receive and note the report. Await further clarification on the model document from the Local Government Association of the Office of Local Government. Required as part of a process now to at least us have addressed this. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Maidment, you're moving as is.
Yes, as is.
Is there a
Mr. Mayor.
seconder? Councillor Arthur, is there any discussion? Councillor Maidment?
I'm
Councillor
quite happy
Arthur,
with that.
any other councillors? With the motion, all those in favour? Against, that's carried unanimously. What is number?
Budget review.
Budget review 3, number 8. Councillors, recommendation will be pursuant to the regulations, adopt the attached budget review number 3 report. Someone move that way, please. Oh, it could be long, councillors. Is someone prepared to move? Is there a question before we move? I'm on number 8.
You've got a few questions, Mr. Mayor.
You can have a questions, yes.
Um,
This has been to which committee, sorry, before councillor?
Page,
Committee on Audit and Risk.
Finance and audit and risk.
yeah, page 124, revenue currently displayed at 3.3 million, increase of 642,000. A, what was that for? And B, what is or is expected the end of the grant income by the end of the year? Are there other grants to be paid yet?
Through you, Mayor. Are you on the statement of comprehensive income, councillor?
On the, hang on, what am I on?
I don't
Budget
know.
review?
Yes.
Where are
Which table?
page, oh, hang on, I've given you the top page. Page 30, 31. 124 in the agenda.
We'll just have a look at what.
No, I don't have a 124 on the agenda.
Well,
But is it through statement of comprehensive income? That chart?
Revenue. What, have I got the wrong one? 16th of May. That's it?
We're just gonna, we'll have a look what you're on, councillor.
Budget review, financial year 2022-23. Revenue.
Oh, the wording.
Well, no, it's displayed as 3.3. You've got an increase of 642,000. First question is, what is that for? And are there any other fronts to be brought into the finances for this year?
Yeah.
I'd have to take it on notice if there's any more grants to come in for this year because they move around and come in all the time at various. I think from memory, there might be still some old LRCIP that may on acquittal come in. And there's probably a milestone payment for the Telstra towers. But there, I don't have that information in front of me.
So they'll be in and out firstly.
With grants, it's pretty much in and out because they're for a specific purpose.
Any other questions, Councillor?
Yeah, but just the other one is the employee costs. We're talking about, there might be bit higher due to long service leave entitlements. Well, that's an in and out, correct?
Yeah, and that will be negligible. We were just showing that there are some changes to, that's one of the variables, that's all.
Yeah, but if they cashing them in, it's reducing our liability in our,
But they're also working, so sometimes if they're not at work, so you're sort of doubling up in a sense, you're
it's
paying.
only affecting your cash flow, isn't it?
Correct.
Not, yeah. Yeah, that's about all I had. Thank you.
So Roundtree,
Yes, thanks, Mayor. So two questions, and they're not really directly at the numbers, more about the process. So it was stated this has been to the Finance Committee, but I was actually questioned as to why we don't live stream the Finance Committee meetings. And so often, do we normally do that, or we don't do it at all?
Through you, Mayor, we have no, so since the COVID finished, we have no policy around which meetings, apart from the council meeting, we actually do as a matter of course. I think that it's important that probably we bring to you a policy position of which meetings you actually want live streamed and which ones you don't.
Thank you. I agree, because I think some of the questions that we discussed during the Finance Committee meeting wouldn't have to be repeated if we could refer back to that. And the second thing, years ago, I asked about the Audit and Risk Committee, and in my mind, when something's being audited, the numbers are being audited. But what I understood is the Audit and Risk Committee from Council is more auditing processes than numbers. That's still the case.
They do, that's exactly the case, except when we do ask our Audit and Risk Committee for feedback, they do comment on the numbers as well. But they are there primarily to look, to make sure that the process is as it should be.
Yeah, so from Councillor Umeth, from Council's perspective, our only opportunity to really delve into these numbers and ask the questions is at finance. And I think that's possibly one that we need to look at maybe making available in the future, perhaps.
that might come up when we review in the near future after the governance training, the terms of reference of committees, Councillor.
Okay.
Other questions?
I'm happy to move the
You're
motion.
moving budget number 8, review of budget review 3 financial year 22-23. Councillor Roundtree's moved. Councillor Qualman, are you question or second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Do you want to speak to that?
There's only one other question I've got.
Yep.
There, sorry.
Councillor Arthur.
It's on page 134. It's road making materials. We've budgeted 135,000. We're nearly to the end of the year. We spent 7,000. Why would that be?
Through you, Mayor, the initial budget had rubble materials sitting in road making materials. Now it's costed directly to either capital works or road maintenance.
In a different area.
Okay.
Okay, is everyone, I'm in debate now. Questions, is there any councillors wishing to debate the recommendation as it reads any further?
Mr. Mayor, for the public record, I'd like to note that the category consumables, which has increased dramatically, was raised in the meeting that wasn't
A workshop
broadcast.
previously, councillor.
And that, if I can ask the CEO through you, Mayor, to explain that one.
So the category consumables, we need to perhaps explain to the public what that really means.
Oh, I'm happy to.
Can I take that on notice and I'll
Sorry,
send you a
if I-
definitional thing?
I'll provide my understanding of what we were told, if that's all right, Mr. Mayor.
What your understanding
Is that the dollars in that amount is for the Telstra Tower, and it had been categorised into that category.
I think that would be one of the things that ends up in.
That caused it to grow quite substantially.
Yeah.
And through you, sorry, Mayor, the Telstra Towers is a little unique for us as well. It's a big amount, it's infrastructure, but it's not our asset, so it does stay in the operational budget.
Any more questions? Speaking to the motion or against the motion? The Roundtree is about to close. I put the motion as it reads. Councillors, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 9, 2023-24 schedule of fees and charges. This is for public consultation too, is it, or?
Well, Mayor, technically it doesn't need to go to public consultation, but last year I think, put it up on the website for public consultation, so we were planning to do the same
Recommendation
thing.
reads that way. Councillor Roundtree, you're moving the motion.
Yes.
There a seconder? Councillor Peach, I hope that you're the
Seconding.
seconder. There a discussion, councillor Round?
No, I thank the staff for taking into consideration the Alphen swimming pool requests, and agree that I think having a meeting or a subcommittee to look at this in a broader sense is a really good
Advisory
idea.
group will be formed.
That, he
The
said,
Previous motion, I think. Yeah.
yes, then this is a good thing. I think it's about time we did it.
Okay, seconder, happy? Councillor Maidman?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I note that this is quite happy to be released for public consultation, and it didn't have to be endorsed in order to do it.
Very sharp.
And I'm happy to move it.
You don't have to. 'cause
Or
you've
happy
been
to
beaten.
vote on it.
You've been beaten on it. You're happy.
She's just happy.
Councillor Qualman may not be. Those blue glasses, councillor.
Yeah, I've got my glasses on. Thank you,
Yep.
Mr. Mayor. When we go to the page of scheduled fees and charges for the waste transfer station, we had 2 workshops and I'm under the impression that green waste will not be charged. In previous budget releases and fees and charges, it was written as green waste, no charge, and I see nothing written there. I've just had some inquiries. I want to know what's happening with green waste, please.
Still the position of no charge, councillor.
Could you,
Confirm that,
could you include that, please? Thank
put
you.
that back in.
Well
Thanks,
done.
councillor. Under that understanding, anyone else wish to speak for or against?
Just, are we going to include that
to
into the
close.
motion?
Yes, on that understanding, yeah.
I just can't see it up there.
Oh, well, I think that's a verbal resolve.
I'll be watching it.
You're closed, councillor.
Closed.
Motion is as it reads. Item 9, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 10, the Coorong Asset Management Plan, and just at this point, I would congratulate the staff, particularly Matt, on that comprehensive document. You've been provided, councillors, also with a paper version, which, as you do. Is there any questions, councillors? The stage on the strategic value, please.
Through you, Mayor.
Hmm?
I'll be honest, I haven't had a good chance to read any of these yet. I was completely preoccupied with and I know Matt's done a great lot of work, and apologies, Matt, I'm sure it's brilliant, but I just haven't had a chance to read any of it at the moment.
The documents that I've provided on your table are the exact same documents that are in the agenda. They've just been tidied up, so they're the same document that was presented to the Roads and Infrastructure Committee with the amendments requested, and have now been updated in the agenda. And the ones that you have in front of you are the beautiful versions that go to consultation.
My comment
The last
related,
one's only black and white.
my comment related to the agenda, I didn't get to read them in the agenda or this, and I'm not on that committee, so I just haven't had a chance to read.
Large agenda, councillors.
Yeah, it's a big
Councillor Maidman,
agenda.
I do notice that it will endorse this one.
I'll move the report, Mr.
Councillor Arthur is
Mayor.
moving.
I'll move that.
Councillor Arthur is moving.
Yep.
I know. Good one. Councillor O'Hara, you hopefully you want to second it. Councillors, is there anyone speaking for or against the motion? Does the mover and seconder want to speak at all?
I think we had a fairly good workshop about this before, and it's out for consultation. Just put it out there and see what the
Consultation
ratepayers say.
again, okay. You're closing, opening
Closed.
and closing, I think. No one else?
Defer.
No, okay. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 11, same thing. Strategy. The second one's the Road and Transport Asset Management Plan. Number 11, we receive and note this report endorsed for community consultation over a period of 6 weeks. Report be presented to council in its 15th of August meeting, providing details of the process and the final version of Road and Transport Asset Management Plans. I might mention some good news before I start this. So I understand Councillor O'Hara will is awaiting the minister's approval to be on a state advisory committee on behalf of local government. So congratulations, councillor. You look very pleased. Man of your experience in this area, I think if the minister endorses it, it will be excellent for local government. Recommendation, there's a recommendation. Is there any discussion? Councillor Arthur is
I'll move
moving.
that way.
There is a seconder. Councillor Peachy, the seconder. You got any count?
Just on page 3, there's a slight issue with one of the graphics,
Is there something
as it's
wrong?
been printed, sorry.
Purple one he's got, I reckon.
It's nothing major. And I personally
From
found
reader
this,
grader, what is it, councillor?
no, yeah. It's just an overlay of another graphic on a graphic that shouldn't be there, but I personally found this particular document very helpful in terms of actually getting an understanding of where things are at, so.
There are, there's an endorsement of that already. So, councillors, is there any further discussion around item 11? You'll close again,
Close.
Deputy Mayor.
Yep.
I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Getting closer. Number 12, Meningie Croquet Club renewal of permit. Give me a second, please. The recommendation there, councillors, and there's been, we acknowledge this has taken some time to get to where we need to be, and we, I think the CEO and myself met with some representatives of the Croquet Club there 4 or 5, 6 weeks ago. Councillor Peach.
I have a question. The allocation of $16,000, given the issue that occurred with the first attempt, how confident are we that that expenditure can result in surface that's, the reason I asked the question is blade turf a better option?
Through you, Mayor.
Hmm?
I don't think you would say it's the first attempt. We seeded and put irrigation in. It's not up to the standard that they want to play croquet on. This is still a public park. And the standard, if it wasn't having croquet on it, would be probably okay, but there are certain weeds in it. So we worked with them to say that for 16,000, you would be able to do it. If you wanted to turf it, I think we got a quote, which is about 25,000. Is that right, Director?
So we're confident we'll get something we can play croquet on, council. I look forward to learning that game very quickly.
Through you, Mr.
We do.
The RSL are happy with this, are they, I presume?
So through you, Mayor, it doesn't, they still use the RSL, sorry, they still use the bowling club. The RSL have been maintaining that green for a little while, but earlier this year, they sent us a note to say their volunteers could no longer do it, so we would be maintaining it anyway. The Croquet Club are really keen to be involved in helping maintain it as well, but we have to take the responsibility that it's our park, we'll look after it, and if they want to be involved, they will be, not the other way around.
Councillor Maidment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you. This area, it's not anything to do with the EV charging as far as we're demolishable potentially.
Other
the
side of the bowling
laundry.
club, yeah.
That's not going to have anything to do with car parking in the future? Lions Park or not?
No.
No, it's on the other side of the building, then south of the bowling club.
It's actually at the back of the park where all the RSL monuments are.
Just a little
Anyone else?
confusion from the.
So O'Hara moves. Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualman, I think. And either we wish to speak to your motion. Motion is the recommendation. Anyone else wish to enter debate? Being none, close. Put the motion. All those in favour? As against, that's carried unanimously. Number 13. Stainless steel plasma cut bin covers.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we do not continue with this project.
I have a couple of questions too, Mayor.
I just don't want a contrary motion. Perhaps hold your thought, council, hold your motion,
Oh, no,
so I can hear.
there's no motion being moved yet, so it's not.
I know,
it's
so I haven't
not-
accepted the motion, although I'm thinking about what I call the contrary motion.
So
Yes, councillor
Okay.
Rountree, you got questions?
I have a question, a couple of questions.
Foreshadowed motion, I'd say.
So I went through the information on our budget bid session. I know we got a big printout, but this one this one wasn't from elected members from what I can see, this particular thing. I think this must have been, is this a carryover job? Because it wasn't on our elected members' budget bids. Also, it was somewhere I recall, I think, seeing it marked as deferred somewhere in a previous document, and I was just trying to find it then, but I can't, but I will find it at home, I guess. And my third question was, was this put out to tender? And also, when other things like this have come up, they've been deferred to the streetscape project so that we have continuity. I'm wondering why this one sort of has now just jumped out as one that we should do. So I had a lot of questions about doing this in general. I mean, I think it's a good idea, but it's whether we can afford it right now is my question.
So, councillors, I'm thinking aloud now, as is any time at the end of a financial year, there's some probably money, not, I won't say spare, but not allocated yet, deferment of other projects. Budget allocation for when the capital works is obviously available for this. Second thing is, we've been a long time having lots of complaints around rubbish, and I'm particularly referring to the southern car park at Tailem Bend, near the dump point with the bins in the open and the wind blowing the lids open. One of the ways is to put what would be a bin surround around them to try and stop that. So it was felt that there are still considerable amount of those style, what we might call the old style or the standard style ones in main streets, and simply we would take the ones from the main streets to those sort of more public or sort of things and go on process that was stopped some years ago around the stainless steel styled ones within the main streets. So you're shifting the bins, as in I'll call them the green bin surrounds, Matt, I think I can call them that, from the main streets up to more general highway sort of areas and upgrading them with there. It comes out of room within the budget this year to do that, the year we're in now.
So what are we going to replace the main street bins with?
That's what the stainless steel ones do.
Right.
There are some of that style, some in the main streets now. Not everywhere. It has gone to a limited tender.
Yes.
Human.
Can you explain what the limited tender is?
The jail actually manufacture these. And we have gone to other local providers, but in a sense, they're from a budgetary point of view and their capacity to do it is limited. Matt, did you want to add anything to that?
And so Hara,
Yeah, I just like to say on this, I mean, those bins up the end of Tailem Bend are pretty disgraceful most times. They're always overflowing and they're full. I do think this would tidy that up. But I mean, we don't need 14 there, and I think the ones that are going to be put in the main street should be part of the streetscape. But I do think they're a good idea for up there.
For you, Matt. The economies of scale, 14, we did a quick count about replacing green ones and down to the Ampol end as well. So 14 was the number in terms of replacing the ones in the main street and moving the green ones around. That's the number that's actually there.
Through you, Mayor.
Councillor Peach, yep.
Would these be of a similar kind, an identical kind to the ones that were already manufactured? It sounds like they're, okay.
The council logo style.
Yeah, with the pelicans in a cascade down the side. I'm not in favour of spending this amount of money. I'm very much in favour of doing it going forward. I think they look fantastic, but in the current budget environment, I'd rather be saving this money and be looking at it going forward.
Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Foreman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Then the way I interpret it then is that we still got some money to spend, is that correct? In capital works program?
Capital Works Council.
Well, we're nearly out of time, the financial year, so we might as well spend it. And I agree with councillor O'Hara saying those ones down at the south entrance are a little bit untidy and would tidy them up. And then some out at Lampole. So, yeah, I'd probably agree with it. Use the money while put it to some use.
Okay, I'm getting to the point. I know.
You didn't let me make
You can
one
make a
first.
comment because I haven't taken your motion yet.
Uh,
Councillor. Thank you.
First of all, the rubbish bins that we supply up at the Ampole are DIT's property. We shouldn't even be supplying rubbish bins there. The southern entrance, is that also Parking Bay DIT's or is it council's?
The combination, councillor.
Okay, so somewhere along the line, we are providing a service for DIT at no charge. So the ratepayers are paying for that. In the current situation, it sounds like a real state government department. God, we got $50,000 there. We better spend it before the budget's gone instead of saving. It's an unheard of word in local government, state government or federal government. You actually have a saving. And in the current climate, you're going to go out with a 10% increase in rates, and then you're going to find out we're paying $3,500 for a rubbish bin. I think, you know, like I would be spewing if I was ratepayer hearing that information. And that's why I'm definitely much against it.
Okay. I've got, councillor Maidment, then councillor Roundtree, and then I'll bring this to some arrangement.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I think the southern entrance, northern entrance, sorry, is terrible. And I think it goes a long way to cleaning this up and good PR.
How's that?
Yeah, but it's joint,
No,
apparently.
it's not.
It's shared,
Some is.
the northern one.
The southern one
DIT's,
is shared,
southern
northern one's not.
Shared. Southern one is shared, the northern one technically is Department of Transport.
I still think PR, and it's disgusting. You're never going to get anything and help out of debt, ever.
It's our town.
Our town, it
Take it
needs to
away.
be cleaned up.
Councillor Roundtree, and then I'm going to
Oh,
think
well,
about
I've
the
just
direction
done
you've taken.
I've just done a 360, so I was very much against this, but the comments around the rubbish, that is a big problem. And as much as we want it to help us with these jobs, we know that this is going to be terribly hard for them to do. And it is our town, and it is, people assume this is council's mess, and we do cop the flack for this area. Is there any way that, and I know we've got the economies of scale issue, but is there any other way we can solve the south end bin issue without having to spend quite so much money? Is there any other options looked
I
at?
suppose the short answer, councillor, is we buy the present style of ceramic, the green style, and put new ones out there or sharpen them round. But reckon that we could do that.
Do we have a
But,
spare one down the main street?
But no,
that's one of the issues.
We look-
There's
we
not
look
an
at that.
accumulation of these, councillor. The depot. I'm aware of it.
Just a quick question to the
Yeah.
Director of Infrastructure and.
By
Assets.
me, always by me.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. How much does the new red bin cost?
Through you, Mayor, about $55.
$55.
We put
If
five
we
of
put
them
14
there,
in
yeah.
the that's $770.
They don't look as nice, but maybe that is an option. But we just,
Well, I just might make the point, there has been those bins on those sites.
okay.
I am, councillor, I take your point. But in reading the room and your liberty to move an amendment or vote against it, I'm looking for someone that may move the recommendation as it reads or amended. Positive factor. Councillor Maidment. Try as it reads, councillor.
As it reads.
I respect your right,
Yeah, that's fine.
but I think trying to read the mood of the room. Is there a seconder?
I just ask a question.
Certainly. Yeah,
This money is already allocated.
it would be in a
it's in the
second.
budget.
It got up.
Through you, Mayor, just to explain process with capital expenditure, it's usually tied to a particular item. So we will not expend all of our capital budget this year. So we have to come back to you to get approval to spend on new capital.
There a seconder? Councillor O'Hara is the seconder. Mover can speak to the motion. Councillor Maidment, please.
I
I've got a mover and a
think I've
seconder.
Made my point
Made
clear
it,
on
yeah.
this. I'm happy to.
Thank you. Seconder, you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say, when earlier today we looked at someone who wants to put, what, 80-something houses here. So we have to get these places looking nice, you know,
Just
Harlem Bend looks
Step
pretty
carefully.
flat sometimes when you come in from either directions. I'm not trying to be nasty saying that, it just does. And those bins up there, I mean, every time I leave Murray Bridge, I get something to eat and I stop putting that bin there. I never get them in there, they're always full and overflowing and terrible. Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to do it.
Okay. I'm now in debate. Look, Pete, you had your hand half up with me a second ago.
I did have a question in terms of the process
Question,
around
yes.
this budget allocation.
Hmm.
If we don't proceed with it, would that money be saved? What, or would you keep coming back with an
As a cash
expenditure?
allocation.
As a cash allocation?
Cash, it's a cash, yeah, it's a cash allocation issue. Second.
And if I may further through you, Mr. Mayor, what is the total unexpended budget from the capital works program at the moment?
Got any forecast of that as of this date?
With, I'll take it on notice, but with, I'm just looking at the director, but I think it's around about 700,000.
And are we anticipating a further series of recommendations to expend that budget?
No, unless something comes through from councillors, but no, not at this stage.
My time in council as councillor, if we went to the June meeting for that, is too late. For this financial year.
Washing machines in.
There's another one, the next agenda item you might notice is in a similar category, actually.
Hmm.
Right. You know, who else is speaking for or against this motion? Get close to a break. But no one else is speaking for or against. Councillor Qualman.
Just a comment,
For or against, but anyway, go on.
well, yeah, it's now either or either, but I'll have to vote one way or other, but I take on board what Councillor Arthur said. He's exactly right. Unfortunately, we all know what it's like doing with dip tie. Just look at the medium strip and we took it upon ourselves to do some work on that. So I'll hesitantly, anything to make this town look better, even though dip ties should be doing more, I say some more to help us on that avenue. I'm going to vote for it.
Okay. Anyone else? Right.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say I am vehemently against this because of the fact that this here quote is virtually only for the product. It's not for the installation. It's not for the taking them and shifting them away. It's $3,500 each by 14, it was $49,000. So it might be at another $4,000 or $5,000 to this. And also we'll have all these extra bins there, which mean the council will be paying extra money to pick the rubbish up all the time. So it is an encumbrance on the council. And in my opinion, what's wrong with the red bins?
Your points noted, councillor.
Yep.
Okay, anyone else? Because someone's going to close and it'll be councillor Maidment, I believe.
I'll close.
Thank you. Councillors, the recommendation remains as it reads. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That motion is carried and it is carried with councillors Qualman, Rountree, O'Hara, Maidment voting for it, and against the councillors Peach and Arthur. So it remains carried. Thank you, councillors, for a good debate. I'm going to try and get to two or three items, another two or three items, councillors, before I think we have a break. Number 14, procurement of washing machine with payment facility, Nowpan Caravan Park. There's a report, there's a motion. Councillor Rountree, you want to move that?
Yes, please.
Surprise me, yeah.
Don't want to shock you.
There a
Mr. Chair.
seconder. Councillor Maidment is the seconder. Councillor Rountree, you wish to speak to this subject?
Very
Again.
great. Thank you. Very grateful that we have at least the effort that staff and council have put into finding a solution to that problem. I think the room's ready. The people are very much looking forward to it happening. So thank you for all the work that's been done to move this along.
Okay. Speak to it, councillor Maidment.
No, I think councillor Roundtree said everything I would have anyway. Thank you.
Beautiful. Any other council wish to enter debate?
Sorry, just looks up.
You're closing, councillor.
Closed.
I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Councillors, I actually propose have a break for 10 minutes from 7:06, please. And resolve that.
Oh, we were zooming along so nicely.
And I'm doing the suspending. Sorry, it's a fairly long agenda, councillors. We need to have a little break. I believe it 2 hours in. We return. We move to item general ledger policy. Someone wishing to move that
Happy to
way?
move that, Mayor.
You're moving that way, councillor?
Yep.
Page 46, Mayor.
Councillor Roundtree's moving it. We adopt the new general ledger policy. Is there a seconder? That's Councillor Qualman. Hand on blue. Any debate, councillors? Councillor Roundtree?
No.
Anyone else? There's no other debate. You'll close.
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 9, behaviour management policy, council members. Number 16. Did I say 9? 16. There's a recommendation, councillors.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question if I may, through you.
Start with a question.
Just recommendation 3. I just wondered if there was any comment, but I don't have an issue with it. I'm just wondering if there's any comment with where that recommendation has arrived from.
You may. I might have to look to Ash, but as you know, you adopted the original, the model policy earlier. The council then turns its mind to whether it needs to supplement that in any way. And so that doesn't shut the door on that, but we have to have it done within a particular timeframe. So this is really to say that as a council, you've turned your mind to this. But in the future, if you still want to have another supplementary policy, it doesn't close the door. It's really to make sure we've met the timeframe.
Thank you. That's right, councillor. Yeah. Someone prepare to move that way, please. Country, and then I'm Councillor O'Hara. You want to be a seconder or a question?
No, oh yeah, I'll second it.
So Councillor Roundtree moves and you're the seconder. Councillor Roundtree, got any comments?
No, nothing extra.
Councillor O'Hara?
I'd just like to make a comment that I think it's ridiculous that we've got to, as a council of grown people, we've got to move this policy. But there you go.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wish to enter the debate? Being none, you'll close.
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. We move to the next, which is the next item. Set number 17. This is Alpena District Soldiers Memorial Swimming Pool and Caravan Park Committee minutes of the special meeting held on the 1st of May. Station to receive those minutes, councillors. Councillor Roundtree?
Moved.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Peach, any discussion, councillors? Councillor Roundtree?
No.
There is none. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 18, minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held on the 2nd of May. Councillors, just straight recommendation to receive the minutes. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Qualman. Your seconder. Councillor Maidman. Any discussion? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Number 20, motion with notice, Roads and Infrastructure Committee meeting. There's, what are we up to? 19, sorry. Council receive and note the report, internal study undertaken. This coming out of Roads and Infrastructure meeting. The third point there. Councillors, is there any discussion? Someone prepared to move? Councillor O'Hara. Councillor Qualman. I want to speak to that. Anyone? Okay. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 20, motion out notice, roads and infrastructure meeting, receive and report. Sorry, councillor. And you'll see the second recommendation there. Sorry, my voice has gone. Councillor Peach. No, I've got my-
Mr Mayor, can I amend that before moving it?
Yeah, try me.
Removing the following the final outcomes of the streetscape master plan project.
Happy to second that motion.
I'm sorry, I missed
No,
that.
sorry, I'm moving it as read
Yeah.
with the deletion of the last 9 words.
Okay. You can do that. Wish. You're moving that way.
So moved.
Councillor Roundtree, do I hear your voice as the seconder?
Yes.
You want to speak to that, councillor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't believe that this should be tied to the streetscape project because I think the work will be invaluable regardless of what funding we're able to receive going forward. Some of those trees are probably in more urgent need of remediation work than others. And I would like to know that we have a solution should an instance arise like it did last summer when some of them started to die.
Okay. Councillor Roundtree?
I support that position.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make a comment on that. I was talking to the original people who did that. And actually when they put the trees in, they actually bored big holes and went through to get down to decent rubble and then put galvanised iron circles in. And the problem, Robert, thinks probably where some of them is maybe the galvanised iron has rusted out, whereas nowadays you put a fiberglass type seal down there because it's only a few of the trees are affecting the footpath and or the guttering or the meridian strip and a bit of the bitumen. So it was interesting that it's actually, there's 2 layers of bitumen road there.
Enough trouble keeping one in most of the district councillors. Excuse me for my voice. Anyone else? Being no one, someone's closing. You are, councillors. Put the motion. All those in favour? As against, that's just carried unanimously. Next item is, sorry, I'm on a roll now, trying to get through. 21, receive and note the report around weed spraying it at Noonamina. It's on Skurrong 7 Mile Road, sorry. Councillors, someone move that way, please. Councillor Peach, for a seconder. Councillor Qualman, got his hand in an interesting spot.
Oh, sorry.
Just in the background, councillor.
I have to give you a
Any
whistle.
discussion? It's pretty straightforward. Being none. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that's carried unanimously. Okay. Information reports. Item 11, councillors, Office of the Chief Executive Officer. There's a recommendation to receive and note the report. Councillor Qualman and Roundtree.
I have a question, sorry.
Yes. Now
Also,
ask questions.
Yes, thank you. So just looking at the numbers, I just want to confirm that, and we have gone over this before, but I want it in this meeting. We are on track to receive slightly more income than what we had budgeted for, but we are on track to spend 1.8 million more than we had budgeted for. Looking at that for April financial data.
For you, Matt. At this point, yes. The thing that will change that is the operational budget attached to unsealed roads. At this stage, it's in there showing that we'll spend it. We don't think we'll spend it at this point because the weather's against us and we can't get a contractor for what we need to do. So that will
What do you think
change
that
that.
will change? What number will that change? Sorry, materials and contracts.
Correct.
So how much will that go down by?
I'm looking at the director here, but we're thinking maybe 500 or 600.
As reported earlier,
Yeah.
councillors.
We're still looking at then 1.2 million over budget at this point. Just on that then, when we do go over budget, where does that money come from? Or is it just not cash, we're just talking,
No, we are talking cash. And remember in briefings, we've talked to you that at some point there's, depending on when the financial assistance grants come through.
Yeah.
That tops up the cash, but depending on the amount and the percentage, if not, we will dip into the overdraft.
thank you.
Anyone else with questions?
I mean, just the graphic on page 75. I just wondered if we could get October 22 removed so that it's more, we can actually see a bit of the clearer outcome of usage there.
Sorry.
Sorry, the graphic on page 75, the Murray Coorong Trail. I just wondered if we can actually just remove the column from October 22, just so we can actually see what that is, yeah. It does seem to be a rather large outlier.
Any other, councillor Roundtree?
Thank you. So I'm going to just say, having read the Coorong lap, that was really impressive. Thought that was great work. Under meetings attended by the CEO on the 3rd of April, the Bendigo Bank meeting. Has there been any further progress with that?
So, yes, the Bendigo Bank wrote to us last week, and the chair of the board and I have been playing telephone tag over the last couple of days. So we will bring a report to the June council meeting about the use of council facilities at Meningie. That is in line with what they want to do in the district, which is a one-day week visiting service.
Thank you. Next question is, I know it's a busy time of the month and probably the answer is no, but has there been any sort of more political lobbying that you've been able to do this month or any for next month?
So councillor, there are things going on.
Okay, fair enough.
And we are, as you know, the chief executive and myself are going to Canberra in mid-June, late June. I think we're booked and we're trying to get access to some ministers if that's possible.
Yep.
In that trip. Be fair to say we're also trying to get at have a meeting with various state ministers. Questions, councillor Maidman?
It's just, thank you, Mayor, and through you, going back to the financial data, the first part of that under employee costs, other expenses, what exactly are other expenses? What sort of things are in that?
I'm looking, I will take it on notice and send you a list of what's in there.
Okay. Going,
Yeah.
okay. Next page down, still on financial data. Proceeds from the disposal of assets. What assets were disposed of?
So through you, Mayor, I think the land that was sold will be in there, the 4 blocks at Wellington East. There would probably be grader. Would that be in there yet, Matt? Not yet. So as we buy and sell and replace plant, some of that will pop into there, but probably the lion's share in that at the moment are the 4 blocks of land.
General rule with plant and machinery, we sell an item, it comes in as income, and we buy an item and we pay the full. Unlike what most of us would do, which would be take the net position, trade in. That's the general process. Anyone else with questions? Councillor Arthur?
Mr. Mayor, regarding the impact, the new sports club or whatever, have we got any terms of reference on what that they are going to do? You know, we're part of $100,000 input. I would have thought we'd get some terms of reference on what they're actually going to do before we say yes to being part of it.
You exactly correct. So that grant has just come through. It replaces the Star Club, and the terms of reference haven't been developed yet.
Okay.
So we are part of a collective with the other councils to do that.
Yeah, and what is
From memory, I think it'll be about the same as what it was for the Star Club. So I think that's about $20,000.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The CEO's report, page 73, visitations and location, the Canalpin Caravan Park. Is that not applicable or not available? Because I thought now with PayWave, we'd be able to obtain some statistics of visitation to that facility.
It's NA under page 73. Not applicable at this stage.
April visitor numbers.
We can count people who actually use the PayWave, but not everybody does. So
Councillor Maven.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, a very nice photo of an actual decently painted rhino that's proper colour. It looks lovely, and there's been a lot of comments about how good it looks. So it's lovely to have that done.
Didn't you like the previous colour, Councillor?
No,
Did not like it one little bit.
Right.
it wasn't even pink, it was like.
It was horrible.
Whatever it was, it was. Okay, councillors, we're nearly there. There's a motion that moved by councillor Coleman, seconded councillor Roundtree. Receive and note the report. Put that motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Move on to number 2, community and corporate information report. Can someone move that way, please? Receive and note the report. Councillor Roundtree is the mover. Is there a seconder?
Also have a question.
Councillor O'Hara's arm waved, I presume, for that purpose. You got a question, Councillor Roundtree?
I do.
Yeah.
Just on customer service stats, so the statistics, number 3, there's 100, I just wanting to know what 109 internal CDC means.
Mayor, we also use this system for allocating work across different departments. So it's really just a method of moving work around.
Moving work.
Through you, Mayor.
Yep, certainly.
Page 95, noting that property damage and theft is back to. I'm just curious as to what level, what severity we're looking at with those incidences.
I'll take it on notice. It wasn't severe, because if it was severe, we would have reported it to the police. I think the theft might relate to the tree that was somebody's cut off at the base, a dragon tree. And in fact, at the meeting today at the lunchtime, they showed me where that tree may have appeared again. So they also reported it to SAPOL.
Moving dragon.
Impressive.
Anything else in this report, councillors? Number 2, community and corporate information. There is no more. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Must be number 3, infrastructure and assets information report. Councillors, someone prepared to move that, please? Councillor Maidman is the mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree, is there any questions, councillors?
Yes. I have.
Yes, councillor
So-
Roundtree.
Under 11.3, it's to do with the Canalpin Playground softball. It says replaced or aerated. So it says, the question is, was the Canalpin? As a comment under the picture is that it was replaced, but later in the document, it says it was aerated. And what does aerated mean?
Do you, Mayor? The bark softball compacts as children play on it, so we fluff it up and then replace where we're low in bark chips. So it's a
Okay.
combination of both.
Like blowing air into it
Well,
or something?
You break it up and
Break it
then if they're short of, we
short of.
I wondered the same thing.
Fluffing up, I would have understood fluffing up. Thank you. And then my second question is on waste management. So I guess when did we start in that new contract? When did the new contractor start? And is that why we see a well, I guess, do we understand yet why so many bins were damaged? Any more thoughts on that one?
Through you, Mayor, we've done a little bit of investigation and a trial on bins. I prefer not to talk about it in this forum.
No worries.
We've put bins in secret places around the district to see if they're being damaged.
Thank you. So I think it's because what I saw from the chart was that since January this year, we've seemed to have had a steady increase in bins being damaged or needing replacement. 76 or something, which seemed pretty high according to that. So that's hence why the question, but
Councillor, and I might just make this point while we're on this, it's a regional contract with each of us opting in or out. We're probably the first council in. And there's considerable work going on at regional level around how, I suppose, this contract is managed and fitted, and using the combined knowledge of all councils around what may be going right and wrong. So we don't have each council speaking the contractor. But there's
Fair
probably information will be in the next few months, Matt, I think.
Yeah.
Doesn't stop us doing what we're doing now.
Through you, Mayor, obviously the bins that we do have in circulation are definitely reaching the end of useful life, and we are looking at options to bin replacement programs or making an allocation to replace bins. The percentage of bins that are collected and the percentage of bins that are damaged is still low. Even though 19 appears a high number, the number of bins collected is significant. You'll see in the table above the stats, there's, in the order of nearly 10,000 bins or 10,000 plus bin collections a month. A lot of the bins are historically damaged as well, and some of the damage isn't brand new. So we'll continue to work with the contractor on that, but there is a fair bit of work in the background going on.
Anything else? Report? Still going?
oh, can I have another one?
Yeah. No one else is at the end up.
So under capital, well, I think Councillor Coleman might, but under capital projects, the footpath strategy, in year one of the 5-year expansion by segment plan, it says Railway Terrace, Tailem Bend. Is that the same as South Terrace, Tailem Bend? I was a bit confused with the wording as to where that was. Are we in year one? And are we also going to do Railway Terrace projects as part of the 2nd year plan?
Through you, Mayor, the Railway Terrace refers to the pram ramp from South Terrace onto Railway Terrace. So it's the pram ramp, so the access for pushers or gophers onto Railway Terrace.
Onto Railway.
Changed from being at sort of 45 degrees to directly onto and directly off South Terrace, and probably no doubt the current format. Fine. Councillor Coleman, you.
Yes, thank
add to
you.
that.
I just want another question here. Community facility operations on page 106. Mr. Mayor, through the chair to the Director of Infrastructure and Assets. Painting of the rhino sculpture, did someone get onto COSI, or what's been happening, or we just went and done it ourselves?
See,
It's, the conversation is pretty much a bit like trying to find who owned that. We painted it.
Deja vu. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Anyone else? Being no more, there's a motion read by Councillor Mabe and seconded by Councillor Roundtree that we just receive and note the report. I think. Go. Put the motion. All those in favour? I'm in voting. Councillor Roundtree, I presume you're voting for it?
Oh, I just put my hand.
Carried unanimously, councillors. Very good. Questions with notice. Councillor Roundtree, where are we? There's an answer there, councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I would just like to add, after reading the response, and I appreciate the response, thank you, that I think if there is a defect or a breach rectification within a contractual window, that elected members are at least notified in a report. I was told, and this might be wrong, but that the repair involved having to empty the pool. And that would be a cost to council if that was the case, if the whole pool had to be emptied. And I don't follow the logic. Were to have been advised that we would have to wait until the job was completed to find out. Of course, we live in these communities and we're going to hear about these things. And I sort of feel it's a bit unprofessional for elected members, perhaps find out about significant, and I feel this is significant issues in the community, not via a better method through this chamber.
The way I read this report, councillor, it wasn't a result of the retiling of the pool. This was a result of then the pump replacements. I don't know, want to add, there's no effect on service delivery.
So the pool did not have to be empty?
No, if it had to be, I'm not sure how they repaired it. Reading it, using epoxy, they could have done it with the pool still with water in it, but there was no disruption to service. And so it was done after the pool had actually closed.
Regardless of when it happened.
I suppose through you, Mayor, generally, if there's a disruption to service, no straight away, but because for this particular one, there was no disruption to service, it was just business as usual. But I'll take your point. We will refer or advise if those things happen.
So was it?
No, exactly as we wrote down there, Mayor.
Yes, the contractor completed repairs to the pool free of charge on the 10th of May.
Well, that to me indicates if he did it free of charge, it was something to do with his contract.
No, just get, and
So
two
why would he do
directional
it?
water outlets were sealed and the loose tiles around them were reattached.
But why would he do it free of charge if he wasn't in contract?
So you've lost me.
Well, why would you go and fix something for somebody else if you've already done the job, if you weren't contracted to have done that job in the first place? Like if your contract says any repairs or maintenance issues in 12-month period, we'll come back and fix it for free. That's still within the contractual window of what had occurred. So that's why I felt it should come to
I
council.
think, councillor, the tiling of the pool was a different process to the tiling of the pool is different.
The defect that we're talking about is minuscule in its nature. The disruption to the service, if we were going to fix it during the pool season, would have required the pool to be closed for a period of time. It created no problem to the service provided to the community. Therefore, it was decided to rectify the absolute minor nature after the pool season had finished, and it has been completed. It was completed in less than 2 hours.
Okay. Okay, but it was this way it came across to me, sounded like they were still in contract, therefore it would be something we should know about.
Well, we do. I'd
Anyway,
hope that
either or.
any contractor that doesn't meet the specification, or we feel reasonably, we can approach them to rectify work that hasn't worked out well.
So if we can get them
That's
to
what I'd
do
be
it for
doing.
free, that's,
Well, it's the normal process of a commercial arrangement. Sorry, councillor. Questions without notice, 12.2. Yes.
So my question is, has the council thought more about inviting the CEO of Food back to present to council yet? And can I move that the answer be recorded? Just in case.
Not yet. Tomorrow night.
Yes, so the CEO of Food Bank will be presenting at the Jinjanara Football Club rooms tomorrow night to the Lions Club and the Action Club. There is still an open invite. I believe there's a couple of seats left, but I think there's about 80 people coming currently. So he's fitting that in. So no, there was a realisation a bit late, I believe, by the committee that they might not have sent out some of the invites where they probably should have.
That's great.
No, we haven't written yet.
But yeah, I think we should still. Like, it's interesting to hear about the carbon related economy. I think it's important, but what's lapping at our shores at the moment is the homelessness, is cost of living pressures and families who are struggling to feed their children. And I think it would be really useful for us as a group to hear that other side of the story about what is actually sitting on our doorstep.
I think subject to having a discussion tomorrow night with gentlemen speaking, I think it'd be good, but we haven't done it yet. Short answer, councillor.
So can I just move that answer be recorded, that you are still going to do it?
Yes, can move that way.
Yeah.
Now to be recorded. Is there a seconder? Peach. Okay, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? As against, that's carried unanimously. Food bank. So that's pleasing, councillor Peach. If that information is a good group tomorrow night at not a
How many are
full
coming?
meeting now, as we use.
Sorry?
The full invite already booked out.
I know, I believe that they would, from what I heard earlier today, they might have some space left, but they do have a very good turnout.
Yeah. Questions without notice? I'm still on that.
I think soon whack some more tables up.
Time's getting away on us, councillors. I move on to 13.1, motions with notice. Councillor Peach, you moving it as we read it. And I'll read it for you. The council resolves to allocate the remaining funds from the community grants program to the Border Downs Football Club for their solar project applied for under round 2 of the 22-23 community grants program. You're moving that way?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yes. Is there a seconder? Roundtree. You want to speak to it, councillor Peach?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As councillors would note, the remaining pool of funds did decrease earlier this evening by the allocation to the lead lighting group of a further $828. And I note the Chief Executive Officer's comment that the funds left now are just shy of $4,000. As you'll note in the background that I've provided here, our current, I understand we're going to be reviewing it, grants policy and procedures, has a number of criteria that must be adhered to that include that the event project has to be in the council area, the event has to be held within 6 months, or the project completed within 12. Secondary to that, the policy contains weighting criteria that talks about preference being given to grants and preference based on weighting around 50% contributions, wider community benefit and demonstrated need. Now, taking into account that the conversation at the council meeting that approved the grants was predominantly around the 50% contribution, I've put forward this motion to allocate the balance of funds to the club that was closest in asking for those funds. And I have spoken to the president of that club, and he has indicated that they would probably be able to modify their project accordingly to up the shortfall. So I do move the motion. I think I don't want to be spending more than the budget that was allocated, but I do feel that the Border Downs Football Club has met the exact criteria, and that when weighting is given, they would be next in line to receive the funds. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Roundtree, or the seconder?
Yes, I've got nothing more to add. I think councillor Peach has summed it up well.
Anyone else wish to enter the debate? You'll close.
Happy to close.
Is as it reads, councillors. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Just trying to see whose arm's up still. I'm going to try again. All those in favour? I'm taking that. It's carried unanimously, unless anyone disagrees with me. The arms are getting slower as the evening gets on, I've noticed.
Wish we could have buzzers.
Thumbs up.
13.1.2, councillor Peach, customer request report.
So moved. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Move. There a seconder? Councillor Roundtree, you want to speak to it, councillor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The intent of this motion is to provide a feedback loop, I suppose, for elected members. I'm not asking for those members to be identified around the CRMs, but just a general annotation so that we can follow through with community and with outcome on where those are at. And I so move.
Okay, councillor Roundtree.
I read the comment from the CEO, and I can see where you're coming from. But I don't think that's the intent of what councillor Peach is trying to achieve. He's not looking for favouritism or anything like that. And I believe that, you trust the staff to do the right thing and handle things in the appropriate way, and we will handle things in the appropriate way here too. I think it was just a way of being able to see what's out there and how it's progressing. So I don't think there was anything trying to make life more harder for anyone, just to really keep on track and have a look. So yeah, I support it.
I'm going to ask the CEO to.
So I had two concerns. One is this to replace a resident coming forward? So if you have a concern about something that is particular to you as a resident, Councillor Peach is probably the question for, or is it to bypass a resident actually contacting council to put in a CRM? If it's the former, then I am really concerned that it creates two levels and an inequity of access. If it's the latter, it encourages residents to go through the councillors because they will be on the assumption that it will get a quicker result, and it also puts extra pressure then on staff because as soon as a councillor asks for something to happen, even if they prioritise it accordingly, human nature is that they will try to do that as soon as possible. So whichever way you look at it, it creates inequity from a resident's point of view, and it's you would question at some point why you would actually need the residents to contact council if they were going to bypass the system.
Yeah.
I've got a question because you're over.
Personal statement.
Yes, you're allowed to make a personal statement, yes.
Smeark.
I'd like to make a comment.
No, you're not. Stay with him.
Oh, yeah, still.
I've been contacted on a number of occasions by residents who have asked me to action something because they may not have the technology skills, they feel uncomfortable about it. I don't see that as being an issue. I'd also note that the Act clearly states that it is our job to communicate from the community to council. And I don't see this as being in any way, shape or form outside of that. What I'm seeking here is that we have visibility over CRMs that we put forward. I'm not seeking to interfere in the process of how they're actioned, but to have visibility over it, and that we can provide feedback where necessary and also decide to act through the chamber if something isn't actioned in a way that we think it should be. It's not seeking in any way to subvert the process as it currently stands, but it is seeking to have visibility around it. And I do believe under the Act, it is our job to be bringing some of these things forward. And having, in my short times of council, already having experienced a number of people coming to me who are uncomfortable doing this themselves, I think I don't see a practical issue with it.
Councillor, my question would be the progress outcome, the last part of your line of these CRMs at the next council meeting. Are you expecting that to be in a public report or in a report to councillors in a different form?
I am comfortable with that being in either. I'm not feeling strongly about that either way.
The way I'd read that, that's what leads to the concern of the CEO, I think, is that it will become somewhat of a political bidding war.
I'm happy for that the word "at" to be changed to "around," but I did think about that when I worded the motion, and particularly when I revised it to include the word "outcome" and progress there. But I did think it was important to put a time correlation in there.
Words monthly, right, would be more suitable.
I would be comfortable with that, Mr. Mayor.
And through you, Mayor, I suspect,
You're the seconder, I think. Or something.
yeah,
You.
well, I mean, subject to what Councillor Peach thinks, having this in the confidential part of the agenda would be also no.
No, I don't think it wouldn't meet the requirements.
Look at my governance officer, I know what she
Oh,
thinks of
sure.
confidentials
No.
in this sort of format. In fact, I don't think it would qualify and it would
Okay.
not
And
get
it-
there to start with.
This is not intended to be a grandstanding process, and if removing the words at the next council meeting and making it monthly goes some way to assuaging that concern, I'm happy to modify it.
I'm taking the second, I might agree with that. So I'm looking at councillor Quam when he had his hand.
Thank you. As you're all aware, probably the CRM king. I like doing a lot of CRMs and
Rest with your IT skills, councillor.
yes, thank you. I take a different tack to all this because I've been doing for some time. Some elderly citizens or people who just don't not IT savvy, or there's some people that don't even know what a CRM is. And so I take it along myself and I'll fill it out for them. But I do encourage them and I do explain to them how it works. And next time I say to them, you go into the office and the girls will help you do it. I think we should be doing some more. Staff, sorry. Yeah. Miles there as well, yes, all right. Anyway, we could be providing more information, maybe in the e-letters or the publication we have in the Talim Topics about what a CRM is. And of course, Councillor Peach is right. We are the conduit of information between our constituents, I'll get them out. Constituents, thank you, councillor, and the chamber and vice versa. And through the CRM, it is important that we can assist because some people don't understand it, they have difficulty with it, and that's part of our job. However, I would like to see them do it more on their own in the end, because because that's what I think is more appropriate. So I probably won't be supporting this, but I've just it's a good idea, but I just think people got to be taught to do it themselves.
The variation is not an amendment, please. I've taken as councillor Roundtree. Variation. Sorry, councillors, you will see my health's not fantastic. Councillor Arthur.
Mr Mayor, I get quite a few of these. In fact, I've got a text here this afternoon asking me to read the bus driver on the Heinrich Road and Prosser Road, which is an absolute mess at the present moment. So I'll report that. But most
of the CRM process, councillor.
Sorry?
Through the CRM process.
It will be, yeah, and I send it through. But the thing is, that's what a lot of people want to do. They come and see me. They don't send it through. They can't go to the office because the house is only open 3 days and a few times. But as far as I'm concerned, I've got no problems about putting them in. And, lots of times the CEO asks for the person's name. I'll give them the name and the telephone number. Sometimes they get in touch with them, sometimes they don't. Just depends on what's happening. So I can't see any problem. As far as reporting, I think back, it's just I normally get a report back from the person who's put the complaint in. If it hasn't been done, they come and say, why in the bloody hell hasn't this been done? It's been 6 weeks now. Sorry. And that road is, deteriorating something terrible. Okay.
Okay. Anyone else in this debate? There's no one else. Not seeing anyone else. Councillor Peach will close.
Closed.
Okay, councillors. There's been a variation on that motion, which at the end of it, progress outcome of these CRMs, progress outcome monthly, not at the next council meeting. That's the motion I've taken and accepted. With the motion, all those in favour? Those against? So the motion is carried. Almost thank you, councillor, for saving the mayor from having to vote. Motion is carried with councillors. Still be getting this right. Roundtree, O'Hara, Peach and Arthur voting for it, and voting against was councillors Qualman and Maidman. Thank you, councillors. We move to the next one, minute action list 13.1.3.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Moving as read. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. Councillor Peach, you wish to speak to it, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The motion's fairly self-explanatory. I would just note that I have made a modification to the originally submitted motion. Two of them, one was to reduce it down to 6 months. The other was to make it clear it was not to create a backlog work effect, but from this meeting forward. And I so move.
You, Councillor Roundtree, you want to speak to it?
I support this motion. I actually keep a list of the motions myself on a computer, so I have quite an extensive list of them anyway, but I would appreciate them being part of the agenda. So that's why I support it.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak for or against this?
I think that the information provided is enough at the present moment. Monthly report and things come on. If they're completed, why leave them on for another 6 months?
Oh, can I add to that?
Just hang on. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Councillor O'Hara?
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. I don't understand why we need to keep them on there if they've been completed. And when was in two minds of the last motion how to vote, but
Very
are these
much.
two together going to make our agenda enormous?
Oh, you never know. You got a point, councillor, to
Yeah, I
add
just
to
want-
debate, given you're the seconder.
I think so, just for a bit of clarification as to why I think this one is important too, is that sometimes when you go back through the minute action list, the intent of what was being asked can sometimes and I'll give an example of a school bus issue that I had put on as a minute, that I wanted some action taken to the school bus. Now, what I'm trying to achieve is an outcome around working with state government to look at policy. And I know that's not something we can solve on our own, but it's marked as complete. And in my mind, the complete part was we've contacted the relevant person and it's done. Well, to me, it's not quite done. So if those sorts of things stay on there, even if they're marked as done, it sits there as a reminder, I suppose, for me, and what I use my minute action list for, is looking at the intent of what is trying to be achieved here might sometimes get lost in the actual motion that's put forward, marked as complete, when the actual thing itself isn't complete.
I think you've identified a difference in the minute action list, and that
Well, I
is
think-
one which says pick up the bin versus one that's really more a policy issue that will take many months, even years to resolve. I think that's.
And that's okay, it can stay on the list, but marking things sometimes as complete when
Yeah.
the actual job that you wanted done isn't complete.
It might be never complete.
It might never be complete, and so it might sit there, but I think and that's one example, and I've probably seen lots of different examples where the intent of what someone was trying to.
I'm looking at the
achieve.
CEO. That sort of is the core of the issue is sometimes there's an ongoing policy or pursuit of a government department process that's being kept alive by this proposal than a simple thing.
And through you, Mayor, we are very particular. So for that particular example, right to
Yes.
the minister, which we did. And in fact, we went one step further and the mayor and I actually met with the CEO, the minister, I think, at the time. And neither of them provided a resolution to the issue. So we could continue to write, but I don't think that's going to change. I think an emotion such as that, we had fulfilled what was asked of us to do.
Yes.
It is probably at that point, it would disappear off the list but if it hadn't been resolved and the council and the chamber was still keen to do something, then I think it's a new motion to say whatever that might be. Because I don't think the continuation of an old motion will get any further than what we would, that particular.
We are saying, but sometimes it keeps in your mind about what you raised. So for me, I have to go back and spend quite a bit of time going back through old motions to see what we were thinking and the things we wanted done. And go, oh, that's right, that hasn't been completed yet, or that we should ask more about that. But I do see the issue is perhaps our motions aren't worded as well as they could be to get the outcome. So the motion could be quite rushed and you haven't really given a lot of thought to what the words should be to keep it alive until a resolution is found. So in my mind, having things stay on there for 6 months, and I don't think it needs to be longer, and it will bombard, it's an email document, so it will take up more space, but
Yeah,
I think it would actually.
I'm pleased you've raised that point. As you know, we've got the governance training coming up in the next few weeks. The civics, one of the issues is the formation of our motions. That's right. So that we are quite clear in them.
Yes, and
in
I
the
think we
future.
have.
So we look forward to that training coming in a couple of weeks' time. I believe it is, Ash, early June. 20 next week.
So through him, I mean, this shouldn't be extra work because the items are already done. They've been on the agenda. They've now been shaded yellow, moved to below. It's just keeping that list. And where it becomes a problem is for the people that have to have printed agendas, it's more paper. But those of us who look at it on email, it's not going to be any more, and it hopefully doesn't take more work. We get better at our motions. This could possibly not be required in 12 months, but I think it has a use.
All right. Anyone else for or against this motion? There being no one else, councillor Peach will close.
Closed.
The motion is that the items from the minute action list that have been marked as completed remain on the minute action list for a period of 6 months, commencing with motions recorded in the agenda on the May 2023 date. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That is lost. Councillors Roundtree and Peach voting for it. Councillors Bowman, O'Hara, Maidman and Arthur voting against it. Lost. Thank you, councillors. Next item, meeting with community groups. Councillor, you were moving that way?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will move that way.
The reads?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Arthur, you're seconding. You want to speak to it, Councillor Peach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did bring this motion as a motion without notice and was requested to formalise it as a motion with notice. I do believe this is a key part of councillors' business. It is our job to be listening and representing, and that when community groups are meeting with council, and I've tried to make it clear here that we're talking about as a group, that councillors are invited. I do note the CEO's concerns, and I think we can probably work through them, but I would still at this point in time like to put the motion as it currently reads.
Okay, Councillor Arthur, you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment on the fact that, for example, the recent meeting with the gym at Tintinara, we as elected members, Lisa, myself, and from down that way, were invited by the committee, not by council. Yet we went along, and it was very conspicuous, and I got a kick in the bum really from the Action Club when a couple of the staff members had a meeting with the Action Club, and they asked me why I wasn't there, seeing I've been involved in the lake for some, 15 or 20 years doing it, and it was all about the lake. I said, well, I didn't know the meeting was on, and they were a bit amazed that, like as a council representative, that I wasn't there. So I just think in those particular instances, it should be protocol, in my opinion, to invite the elected member. Only if the group doesn't want the elected member there, let him go. Them go, sorry. not
Are we
them.
prepared to add something to the motion, councillors, around the protocol, because that is very crucial in this process?
Well, we got here.
Is there a suggested format of suggested words, or would you like me to come back?
No, I would think that, and that this motion was to get up and regardless of that, that a protocol be developed.
I'm happy to add that, Mr. Mayor.
To the choosing your words, but and that a protocol
and that the chamber recommends that protocol be developed around this or something. Keep it as simple as that if we need to.
we can bring a protocol back to council. Yeah, well, that will happen as a matter of policy. Well, policy is a protocol, isn't it? Well, we can use a policy. That suits the mover. Councillor Maidment.
So I just have a question, Mayor, through you. Would this be covered in the civic mandatory training as far as what is expected of councillors at community groups if they are invited?
Will be asked.
So is this preempting this?
To a degree, but
Because, I mean, I'd like to get that training done, and then that may solve this problem, because we'd know where we stood with policy.
I'm just going to get it.
So I don't see how the training would affect this. I mean, this particular motion shouldn't be affected with training because we're talking about policy decision of council to say that when community groups ask for a meeting, that we're at least notified. Now, we can obviously not go and put in an apology, but at least that's more respectful than not turning up and them thinking we're snubbing them because we just don't want to go. So I think I don't think training would fix this. It's more about how council handle requests from community groups. And respect to councillors.
You, councillor May.
Well, thank you. And to that, if community groups ask us to attend as members of the public because we're interested in that community group, do we then have to become councillors, even though we've been requested to go as a public meeting or a public person? Because it's stated here in the chief executive's comment that if councillors were to attend meetings protocol, we must lead the meeting. But if we are there just because we're an interested person of the community, that wouldn't apply, would it?
Leads to a very complicated answer, councillor. Councillor Qualman, he sort of fell into a bit of an awkward position 12 months ago around this when you in the Taylor Progress Association.
Yes.
At what point do you become an interested person versus councillor hat?
We always then a councillor. Right, we're always a councillor. If we're
4-year
invited
contract,
to a
yes.
community group, we're then expected to lead the meeting, even though we're not part of that community group on a day-to-day basis.
I know what happened to councillor Qualman. It's in the public domain, I think, councillor. Yeah. So it does leave you to an awkward position
Mhm.
in terms of the relationship between the council executive and your role as a councillor, and then coming to the chamber to debate something that may, involve a council decision. Pointing that out because I know what happened.
Smith.
It was a sort of a clarification, councillor.
Yes, I think the motion as it's reworded does solve this issue because there will be a protocol brought forward around it and it's acknowledged in the motion. And that protocol may be informed by the training we have, but I think the substantive part of the motion is that leaning towards councillors being informed of and invited to public group meetings. And that's the intent.
So councillors, you're also free, if you wish to wait for the training, to move a formal motion to adjourn the motion till after then, if you wish, but anyone else wish to speak for or against? A couple, yep. No, councillor Peach, you're going to close with that.
So closed.
Ended. Closed. The councillor is aware that move councillor Peach, second councillor Arthur, when council is meeting with community groups, excluding individual members, members of council shall be invited as a matter of course unless the community group in question requests otherwise, and that a protocol be developed around this procedure. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Councillor, I'm starting to fail, if you might see, so I'm looking at the Deputy Mayor in a minute. Number 5, Canalpin Hall Committee, Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. So thank you to the CEO for providing a response to my question. I disagree that the motion preempted the workshop. I think the workshop was created because of the motion that I had raised, but nonetheless, the Canalpin Hall is a council asset. There are a group of volunteers who are prepared to be on the committee. Look at whether an advisory committee was better suited. I don't think it is. They just needed clear terms of reference. In saying that, I will adjourn this motion until after the Section 41 workshop.
So moving a formal motion to adjourn this one.
Moving a
Until
formal
after-
motion after
after-
the Section 41 workshop.
Section 41 workshop. That's right, isn't it? Adjourn till after the because we have to name a time.
Mhm.
After Section 41 committee, Section 41. That's okay. Workshop. You're a seconder? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you.
You just debate. There's none, you close, you have
Closed.
formal motion. We don't get to debate it even better. Sorry. Put the motion, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. You? We're up to number 13.1.6. Recordings of motions not accepted by the mayor.
I'd like to move that way.
Moving that as it reads.
Reads, yes.
For a seconder. Councillor Peach is the seconder. Councillor Roundtree, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you. So appreciate again the response from the CEO. It is, I can't see where in the Act it says that the mayor's acceptance of a motion without notice should be done sparingly or nor for only urgent and time sensitive matters. I don't believe it says that. I also don't dispute the regulations give the mayor absolute discretion to refuse or accept a motion without notice. My point is that in doing this, the action itself is recorded in the minutes as an event that occurred in the chamber. And we've just demonstrated that with accepting the April Council minutes, that the world doesn't end when we record information about motions without notice that were not accepted or deferred. So despite the view that the matter is not required to be recorded in the minutes, there's actually nothing in the Acts that says it can't be done. So I would like to see this motion get up.
Okay. Councillor Peach is the seconder, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do note the amended minutes that we passed at the beginning of the meeting today, and I appreciated the brevity as well as the inclusion of those motions that notice. I do concur with Councillor Roundtree. I also I have been surprised, shall I say, at the idea that motions without notice should be taken sparingly. The regulations say that a councillor may bring any motion if it meets the requirements with guiding principles without notice. I have accepted the mayor's concerns around grandstanding with this issue, if I may put it that way. And I think the way that the motion is currently worded and the way that those motions without notice were reflected in those minutes we adopted tidies up the issue. I do think when a councillor brings a motion, the motion has been moved. The mayor may refuse to accept it, but that is a decision of the mayor that he has taken. And I fully acknowledge that it is his right to do so. And I do believe that those two key points, that the motion was moved and that the mayor declined it, should be recorded in the minutes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Arthur, you give me that look of you want to speak.
Yeah, well, actually, we had quite a session on this last Friday, and it is the
You attended the
LGA's
Deputy Mayor's Forum, I think is what you're referring to,
And it is
councillor.
something that they are pushing, that mayors be very, very hard on motions without notice because of the fact that it does not give the staff time to prepare a decent answer to it. So they are advising, and like that the mayor, or if I was in the chair, that refuse the motion and ask them to be put in writing as a notice with notice for next meeting. So I can't agree with this at the present moment. So, and that is the LGA, and I think they are actually going to try and get it into some of the legislation, the way they're talking.
Add to
Yes,
your
I
motion.
do. I accept through you, may I accept where Councillor Arthur is coming from. However, the point is not that the motion's not accepted or is accepted, which is what he is referring to. It's about the fact that the event happened and you're recording that event, not that the motion, not that there's no time needed to give staff to respond to it if it's not accepted. You're simply just recording it wasn't accepted. So the amount of time needed to respond to that is fine. You can defer it. You can say, make it a formal motion, which gives time for the staff to prepare a response. Happy for that to occur. This is about recording that the event happened, that is simply, it was bought and it was referred on to another meeting. It's a completely different argument to what Councillor Arthur is discussing.
Okay, anyone else? There's been no else. I'm almost taking you as closing speech, but
I'll close.
councillors, it is as it reads, councillor, near the point I can't read. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? Those against? So that's carried, but with councillor Arthur voting against the motion. Right. Number 7. 13.17, recording of answers to questions without notice. Moving that way, councillor.
I am, well,
Can I ask a question, Mr.
yes,
Mayor?
I've got something.
Yeah, certainly.
The ability of this motion to be brought, I agree with the motion, but the ability of this motion to be brought and the CEO's comments around that, if the motion was not able to be brought, it shouldn't have made it into the agenda, if my understanding of the meeting regulations is correct. So can I take it that by the fact it's in the agenda, the motion can be brought?
The CEO may have a slight difference in opinion occasionally. Often, she said. So I suppose at the end of the day, it is my choice whether we accept motions. I would note, though, that the CEO has recommended that it not be proceeded with, it be withdrawn.
We're talking about the one that's on the screen now,
13.17, I hope.
Correct.
Brian,
So we're talking about the questions.
question without notice and the reply will not be entered in the minutes of the relevant meeting unless the members present at the meeting resolve that an entry should be made. Regulation 9.5.
So
go on.
may provide further comment. I think this will speed meetings up rather than have us stop and have to move it every time. And I would be in favour of it if the motion can be brought. So
Once again, with the civics training due at the end of this month, my strong recommendation, given that the CEO may slightly variant here, is wait until that training. But I invite you to ask the presenters very directly around this particular process. That's up to the mover. I haven't asked her to move it yet either. But she could just sit on it if she wished.
Well, I guess what I've written down is a personal statement, and I am disappointed in the unwillingness of council to be more helpful with regards to the transparency in this matter. I think every question can be recorded if moved and seconded, so that it's not a matter of the information ending up in the minutes, it's about something which escapes me. So there can be nothing guarded about the response, which is live streamed. So to be able to record in writing a summary of a response should be fairly straightforward. There's nothing confidential about it. It's there in the live stream. It saves people having to scroll through hours of tape to try and find the 30 seconds or 40 seconds where something is answered. So now we're left with no choice but to move a motion every time we want an answer recorded in the public forum. It's convoluted, and I think it's actually just quite time wasting. But I also see that the Act is not allowing this to happen, and it floors me as to why this is the case and how we can do anything to get around it, because I think I'm very clear with what I want to achieve here, and there seems to be no wriggle room or a way around doing it other than moving it separately for every single question, which is going to be convoluted. So
let's just take Deputy Mayor's point after his training. We have a time to turn our mind to it. What would probably happen is if a question's directed at staff or even myself, we're probably going to say we'll have to take that on notice.
and that is still okay, because what that does, Mayor, is set a process in place where we can then chase up later what that answer would be. But to simply say director provided a response, then just say that the director took it on notice, and we will come back and we can express that more later.
Very subtle point here is that response doesn't necessarily come back to the full council. It can come back via an internal email, as is that doesn't necessarily give you the result you're looking for.
Well, could the response to the question not be that the CEO will get back to members via email within 2 weeks or a month or whatever?
That may be the case. But
That's an answer.
terms of the public transparency, that doesn't give you a better result.
Well, then we just back to moving and recording the
know.
answer. So either way it comes out because it's verbally said
I'm
during the
giving you
meeting.
That
Mr Mayor,
date 26, and are you prepared to sit on this for
Well, I'll adjourn the motion till after the training.
the same motion as before?
Same, I will adjourn it till later. I think it's still valid. I still don't think we've solved the problem, but I'm happy to adjourn until after our civic training.
Is there a seconder? Or I have no voice left. For O'Hara, thank you. Further debate, this is, well, there's no debate, this is a formal motion, sorry, councillors.
Mr Mayor.
No. I
This
know,
is-
I get to put the motion straight away with a formal one.
Okay.
No, so I put the motion, all those in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. Sorry, I'm up to item 13, motions without notice.
Mr
You
Mayor.
weren't brave enough.
We've done the councillor training. As training councillors,
Too
so
nervous.
are you going to test me out?
Yeah. Mr Mayor, because the minutes of the Tintinara Hall Committee have not been received for this meeting, I'd like to move a motion that the council provide the town hall for Ralph Sacker's funeral at no charge. Now, Ralph was an inaugural member of the hall when it was built, and he was been on the committee for 46 years. And he also is a life member of the hall, and I think it's just only fitting as one of the inaugural members that actually built it. The council rescind the charge.
So, I know Ralph, yeah, well, you Ralph. I'm going to accept the motion, councillor, just the basis of his, obviously it can't wait, A, but B, we might note his many years of service in the motion, please. 46 years, I think, was what I just told on the Tintinara
Hall Committee.
Is it a memorial hall? It is. So you want to second that, councillor?
I
Peach?
would love to second that motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Sorry. Which is perhaps where motions without notice some.
Well, I didn't know when he was.
You didn't know when he may have
leave
been
us, so I couldn't-
leaving us.
And
Are we going, Ashley? Well, if we're getting the right words.
Yeah.
I think that's how you spell it, councillors. I'm looking at them at Tintinara councillors. Is that how you spell the Zaka name?
Z-A-C-K.
Noting his many years.
Yep.
And extend condolence to his family. Councillor.
if I may, Mr Mayor, it was a very fitting send-off in the hall for him,
It's already happened.
as happened.
Oh, well.
Well, we couldn't hang around.
Yes, appreciate that.
Close the debate, Mr Mayor.
I haven't asked for anyone else to add to the debate yet, but I think, thank you. I'd like you just to add, councillor, if I could, Tintinara community and the Hall Committee. I just think it's actually around the facility we're seeking a waiver, and it would be just prudent to have that there. Okay, I'm going to put that motion because I think we're getting near the end. All those in favour? As against, that's carried unanimously. I trust.
It's a bit sad, man. Got to die for you to accept the motion without notice.
That's what we've learnt from this process.
We'll get to this debate around the chair's discretion at some stage, council. Yeah, I'm taking there's no more. I'm up to 14-minute action list, councillors. Councillor Peach.
Just with regards to the streetscape project round 2, how is the feedback going?
My understanding is that with feedback and that is now ready to go off, or it may already have gone off to back to the consultants. So we are now waiting for them to collate it put it into some sort of a form. I think, as I said, at most of the community meetings, depending on the materiality of the changes and the volume, it may lend itself to a third round, but we're just waiting to see that.
For the question, Mr. Mayor, noting that train carriage community engagement was extended, is that also closed at this point?
Community engagement or the promotion hasn't been able to happen yet, so that will be extended out.
Further.
Anything else, councillors? Wind this one up. So councillors, just in 2 minutes, I'm going to have a 5-minute break myself. So we're up to item 15, confidential items. So for those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to move into confidence. The live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting. The council, I just need to have a 5-minute break. Thank you.